Chapter 21, A Mommy's Boy? At the city center, in the most prosperous Jinling West Street sat a tranquil tea house that had an excellent word-of-mouth reputation. On the third floor, Chen Jin sat waiting inside the luxurious private room. He had sent away his parents who came together with him, telling them to wait for news at home. If first impressions were good, a blind date could drag on for a while. They might go for some shopping, watch a movie and do some other leisure activities, even a whole day might not be enough for them. Okay, I'll go back with your dad. Son, grasp this opportunity. Mom will be waiting for your good news. Giving him encouraging look, Li grinned from ear to ear. Her son was so proactive. This matchmaking session should be a done deal. Glancing down on his wrist at the watch that Chen Jin gave him, Chen Gang checked the time and said, "It's 8:50 am, she'll arrive in 10 minutes. We'll go back first." Nodding his head, Chen Jin saw his parents leave. Sitting inside the private room, he held a cup of Tai Guanyin tea as he continued to wait. It was 9:20 am in the blink of an eye, yet his partner had still not arrived. He played some mobile games on his phone until 9:50 am and there was still no trace of his partner. Chen Jin started to scrunch up his brows. He could still forgive her if she was 30 minutes late, but she was late for almost an hour. This could only mean that she did not treat this blind date seriously at all. "I'll wait for another 10 minutes, if she's still not here by then, I'll leave. I've got things to do, I don't have so much time to waste with you." Burying his head in his mobile game again until 10 am on the dot, he still saw neither hide nor hair of his partner. "Fine. I'll leave." Keeping his mobile, Chen Jin stood and picked up the backpack on the sofa. He was ready to go to the front desk to pay the bill and leave. As he reached the entrance to the private room, he saw a beautiful silhouette approaching him in a hurry. Spotting Chen Jin, she stopped walking and asked, "Are you Chen Jin? The partner that my mother introduced to me for this blind date?" Sizing her up without missing a detail, Chen Jin noticed that she was wearing a purple floral chiffon dress and aviators, had a tall and slim build, long hair, pretty features, and refined makeup. On her feet was a pair of high-heeled sandals to flatter her long beautiful legs. His first impression was that she was much more beautiful in person, her photo did not do her justice. Hearing her words, Chen Jin nodded, "Yes, I'm Chen Jin. You must be Yuan Linier." "That's right, I'm Yuan Lin, your partner for this blind date. Where are you going with your bag?" Yuan Lin asked upon seeing the backpack in his hands. Chen Jin answered honestly, "I'm going to the front desk to pay the bill." Yuan Lin originally had a positive first impression regarding him, however it turned negative in a flash. With a slight scowl, she explained, "The traffic jam on the roads was a little severe today. I was not deliberately late, can't you spare some effort in waiting just a little bit?" "Oh, then let's go sit in the room." Feeling slightly awkward, Chen Jin retreated back into the private room. Yuan Lin walked in and sat across from him. Chen Jin smelled a very pleasant fragrance permeating the entire room. He called over the service staff and ordered a flask of 388 Yujian Longjing tea. Displaying his gentlemanly behavior, he poured a cup for the woman sitting across him. After which was almost 10 minutes of silence. Elegantly, Yuan Lin took a sip of tea and spoke straightforwardly. "Let's talk about something." Chen Jin asked, "Talk about what?" "We can talk about your work, what kind of job do you do?" Chen Jin shook his head, "It's just a normal job, there's nothing much to talk about." "Then, let's talk about your interests and hobbies. What do you like to do?" Chen Jin started to ramble, "Yes, I like to game and watch anime. Those are my favorite things to do." Finally he asked, "Do you like those?" Shaking her head, Yuan Lin replied, "No, I don't. I've never really checked them out." "You actually don't like gaming and anime, are you a real person? How can there be someone who doesn't like gaming and anime, you're such a loser." With an agitated expression, he ended his spiel saying, "We have no common topics between us." Yuan Lin was stumped speechless. Scowling, she thought, she had her own interests and hobbies. She passed all 10 grades in piano, 8 grades in English and even started her own company. Why would she ever touch such demoralizing things like games and anime? It was she who thought that this man in front of her had no common topics with her. She could not communicate with him. It was to the extent that she thought that she could not continue this conversation anymore and wanted to leave. But this blind date was very important to her mother. She was reminded of the assistance that Li, the director of accounting in the tax bureau, could provide. If the two families united, there would be many benefits in the making. Thinking about this, Yuan Lin temporarily suppressed the impulse to leave and decided to make an effort to understand her partner. Restraining her impatience, she asked many questions. For example, she touched on topics like family upbringing, education, the three principles of knowledge, and daily life, etc. In the end, Yuan Lin was greatly disappointed. It was because no matter what questions she asked, this man could not stop mentioning my mom every 3 sentences. Whenever he answered a question, he liked to tack these 3 words, my mom said, onto the beginning of his opinion. Moreover, the opinions that this fellow expressed on the topic of marriage simply drove Yuan Lin up the wall. My mom says that if I'm not satisfied with my wife, I can marry another. But there is only one mother, if my mother is gone, I cannot have another one. So, I must be very filial to her. After I'm married, I hope that my wife will be like me and show obedience to my mother. Everything that she says is right, listening to her is absolutely the right thing to do. On the other hand, if we act carelessly on our own, we'll never do anything right. Also, I do not wish to see my wife anger my mom by engaging in conflicts with her. My mom gave birth to me and raised me, she struggled her whole life. I find it unacceptable if she had to endure bullying from her daughter-in-law instead of enjoying her old age. Since we are living together as one family, someone would have to compromise in situations. My mom has a very good temperament, she would never hurt another person. If there was a conflict between her and her daughter-in-law, then it's definitely not my mother's fault. At this point, Yuan Lin was so pissed off she simply could not listen to this anymore. Picking up her bag, she stood and frankly said, sorry, I don't think we're suitable. I'll make a move first. I'll pick up the bill at the front desk. Oh, Chen Jin nodded his head dully. I too, think that we're not too suitable. You don't have to pay the bill, I'll do it. Standing up, he took great strides towards the front desk. Yuan Lin also left as if she was fleeing from the tea house. Too scary, it was simply too scary. When she returned home, Yuan Lin still felt some lingering fear in her heart. Mother Yuan walked over and asked with some curiosity, Lin, why are you back so quickly? How did the blind date go today? Hugging her pillow, Yuan Lin replied, don't ask about it anymore, Mom. I almost fell into a death trap. Him and I, we are not suitable. Really? Mother Yuan was very surprised. That fellow doesn't seem too bad. He looks tall and handsome. I heard from Director He Li that her son works a stable job, is motivated to better himself and even knows how to prepare meals and keep the house clean. He is well-mannered and is especially filial towards his parents. It's hard to find such a fine fellow nowadays, how can you not be suitable? So what if he had all these good qualities? Mom, do you know that he's a mommy's boy? What? A mommy's boy? Mother Yuan's expression drastically changed. This was truly frightening and shocking. There goes a saying, never marry a mommy's boy or a helicopter sister. If one marries a mommy's boy, it means that the marriage will never be a happy one will definitely suffer grievances. Life thereafter will be hellish. Yuan Lin had a best friend who married a mommy's boy. Her mother-in-law's bullying pushed her to her limits. Every day her face would be awash with tears. She reluctantly endured the situation for 3 years. Even though the husband had a very good family background, they still ended up divorcing. Once you meet a mommy's boy, it was the same as meeting a death trap. Hearing her daughter's explanation of the general situation, Mother Yuan stopped expressing her incomprehension and changed her stance. She now supported her daughter's decision. How would she not know the terror of a mommy's boy? Mother Yuan was very suspicious though. How did a woman as brilliant and capable as Director He Li raise her son into a mommy's boy? Following this thought, she immediately came to a realization. Precisely because Director He Li was brilliant and capable, it made sense that her son became a mommy's boy. It was similar to how her daughter, Yuan Lin, was a mommy's girl. There was no intrinsic difference between the two of them. However, for the sake of her daughter's lifelong happiness, she will never allow her to marry a mommy's boy and suffer grievances in another family. After all, she only had one daughter. Thus, the follow-up for this blind date was ended for unknown reasons. Chapter 22, $3 million. For 3 days straight, Chen Jin visited all the pawn shops, auction houses, and both small and large-scale jewelers in the business district. Every time he got rejected, he would go to a new place. He paid a visit to any shop that had even a little bit of reputation and credibility. He would find the boss or manager of the shop and offer to sell his precious metals and jewelry. To prevent himself from attracting attention, at each shop, he displayed only a small quantity of jewelry to offer for sale. The money value of the jewelry traded was also limited to around $100,000. He avoided entering more than 3 of the chain stores from the same brand, even if each store was separated by a long distance. Chen Jin entrusted the few most valuable items, including the watch that was embedded with a sapphire as big as a pigeon's egg, to Sotheby's auction house in order to get a better price. With its centuries-long history, Sotheby's would be able to help him sell off the items. A coordinator from the auction house had promised that his personal details would be kept strictly confidential. In addition, Chen Jin handed over 5 oil paintings and 3 antiques to Sotheby's. These oil paintings and antiques had unknown authorships and provenance in an eccentric style. Although they had a certain artistic value, their unclear provenance put them at a disadvantage. The auctioneer in charge told him that they could help to auction them, but he could not guarantee a good price. It could be entirely possible that no one would bid on it. Chen Jin said, "It's fine. As long as it can be auctioned off, I'll be okay even if it sells for only $50,000 or $100,000. It'll be good if they could go for a higher price. Try your best to not let it pass without a bid." The other party affirmed that the request was okay. Within 3 days, by running like this to more than 30 business organizations, Chen Jin had basically sold all the easy-to-sell jewelry that he possessed. So, how much money was earned from his sales? Not much, not even $3 million. From what he had, 1,400 plus grams of gold was sold for $260,000. 28.6 kilograms of silver was sold for $50,000. 300 plus pieces of platinum and diamond accessories were sold for $680,000. He had about 350 pieces of jewels and various gemstones. Some were of high quality while others were fake, hence the big difference in prices too. Chen Jin was not too knowledgeable about jewels and gemstones and had probably paid a steep learning fee. But even so, he managed to sell those jewels for $1,650,000. Excluding the sapphire-embedded watch, the 50-plus gold-plated watches were sold for average prices. He received a total of $320,000 from those. The grand total was $2,960,000. The 10 odd items that he had entrusted to Sotheby's were still not auctioned off, and it would be some time before the proceeds appeared in his account. So, from the start until now, the profits that he acquired from scouring the city of Taris was not even $3 million. What? After raking through all the high-value items in a city with a population of 100,000, they were only sold for less than $3 million? What kind of epic joke was this? But this was the truth. On one hand, the civilians of Taris had brought along many of their belongings of value, and the remaining treasures were slim pickings. On the other hand, it was related to the social customs and habits of the people in Z country. From his endless bounding across the city these past few days, Chen Jin reached a conclusion: the majority of Z country's people adored brand new goods and hated second-hand goods. With the exception of cultural artifacts that were better with age, other things were severely devalued once they were used or old. For example, watches, cars, clothes, computers and mobile phones etc. Their rate of devaluation was very high. In Z country, not many people liked second-hand goods. Certain goods which had been through a certain number of hands would be degraded to the level of rubbish or even worse. People would express a deep level of dislike, shame, and rejection towards them. Naturally, those items could not be sold for a reasonable price. Thus, Chen Jin could only shake his head. This devaluation is too severe. When you want to buy those items, they may cost you upwards of $30 million. But when you sell it, you can't even get $3 million for it. This is simply too. Moreover, once he sold this batch of precious metals and jewels, he had no intention of selling any more of these, even if he did find more after scouring the city of Taris the next time. Or to put it more accurately, he would not sell his precious metals and jewels on a face-to-face basis anymore. He was worried that it would attract attention from others and subsequent investigations. Mom works at the tax bureau as a middle management officer. What will others think when they notice that I've brought so many precious metals and jewels for sale? Z country has a law that makes it illegal for one to own large amounts of assets that has no clear provenance. If I am unable to explain the origins of these precious metals and jewels that I possess, I cannot escape from that particular law. I could possibly be thrown into jail for a few years. I might even implicate Mom. So this was the last time that Chen Jin would personally do business face to face. This was a one-off business deal. He would have to use other means to earn money the next time. Although $3 million is not much, it's still enough to last me for a while. It's going to take a long time to reach this little goal of 1 billion. Shaking his head and sighing, Chen Jin silently lambasted, "Billionaire Wang, are you sure that $1 billion really is a little goal? Why do I feel that this goal is a little too big?" During dinner, He Li suddenly put down her chopsticks and asked Chen Jin with an expression full of concern, "Son, how did yesterday's blind date go? Are you still in contact with Lin Lin?" After some consideration, Chen Jin said, "Our chat went well yesterday, we were pretty happy talking to each other. I also gave her my WeChat contact. But, she did not add me as a friend after we parted ways. Perhaps she was too busy." Chen Jin ad-libbed his lies. Raising his head, Chen Gang interrupted, "If she still hasn't contacted you by now, it means that she's just not that interested anymore." Nodding his head, Chen Jin said, "Yes, I think her interest has waned too." Glaring at Chen Gang, she then turned to look at Chen Jin and said with a drawn-out breath, "Son, I was talking to Lin Lin's mother on the phone and asked how your date went. I could hear from the implication in her words that they were not pleased with your behavior." He Li asked, "Son, did you say something inappropriate?" Shaking his head, Chen Jin denied, "No, Mom, I didn't carelessly shoot my mouth off." "Then why would Lin Lin's mother say that you are not suitable for her daughter? Tell me about the situation yesterday, Mom can analyze it with you and find out where the problem lies." "Mom, what's there to analyze? A failure is a failure, there's nothing to analyze. I too, think that I'm not that suitable with you and Lin. We have nothing in common." Chen Jin was feeling somewhat impatient as he grumbled, "Z country is full of women, why are you so fixated on her?" You glaring at Chen Jin, He Li felt rage and frustration at his nonchalant demeanor. "Yuan Lin was the blind date partner that I had chosen for you after a meticulous selection process. Did you think it was so easy to find a suitable match that is your social equal nowadays?" This little twerp was not treating it seriously. He was even trying out his little tricks to get up to something mischievous. "I had thought that you were sensible, but you are actually still so mischievous." He Li was filled with discontent and despondence. However, she did not show that she was upset. She merely put on a happy facade again and gently said, "Okay, since this person didn't work out, I will arrange another partner for you next weekend. It's hard to say, but maybe you'll fancy the next one." "No, don't. Don't." Chen Jin waved his hands, "Mom, don't arrange any more blind dates. I don't want to go. I have some things on the next week and will be busier. I don't have time for a blind date. How about the week after? I should be very busy then too." Wielding her trump card, He Li said, "Son, recently, I've been planning to buy another house in the north of the city. The down payment is about $1 million with a monthly mortgage payment of $30,000. But, I don't have that much funds on me. Son, do you think I should buy the house?" She would not believe that she could not keep this disobedient boy in check. "Buy, you have to buy it. If you don't buy a few more houses now, it will be impossible when the government implements cooling policies." Very unexpectedly, Chen Jin expressed his support. He even took out his mobile phone from his pocket, opened his Alipay account and transferred $50,000 to his mom. Ring the notification alarm for the successful fund transfer rang. Chen Jin told He Li, "Mom, I'm returning the $50,000 that you lent me. I have money now." Chen Gang was shocked, "Where did you get that $50,000? You have enough money to return your mom's loan." Chen Jin explained, "I've been working recently and earned some money, about $100,000. Filled with curiosity, Chen Gang remarked, $100,000 is pretty good. What do you do to earn this kind of money?" Scratching his head, Chen Jin replied, "I'll keep that a secret, hee." Suddenly, he heard loud sobbing. "Boo-hoo! Boo-hoo-hoo-hoo!" The wailing became louder and more heart-wrenching. Turning his head, Chen Jin was immediately taken aback. Mom was crying a flood of tears. "Mom, what's wrong? Wife, why are you crying?" He Li continued crying, "Boo-hoo-hoo!" Chen Jin stood up in a panic. Walking to her side to comfort her, he said, "Mom, don't be like this. What did I do wrong?" Chen Gang shook her shoulder. Wife, what's wrong? Throwing herself into Chen Gang's arms, He Li loudly cried, "My son doesn't want me anymore." With sweat anxiously beading on his forehead, Chen Jin stamped his feet. "Mom, you misunderstood. I never meant that I don't want you anymore." Nonetheless, He Li still cried without a care, "Wah wah wah. Quickly, you little twerp, take your money back." "What a twerp, how could you return what your mom gave you? Can you afford to return the sentiment behind it?" Grasping the situation, Chen Gang scolded his son harshly. Yes, yes, yes. Mom, I was wrong. I will take the money back. Immediately. Taking his mom's phone, Chen Jin opened her Alipay account and returned every single cent of the $50,000 that he had transferred. After that, both father and son cajoled her for more than an hour straight. Barely holding back her tears, He Li did not resume her normal state until Chen Jin agreed to participate in a blind date on the week after. Then, she finally stopped crying altogether. Chapter 23, Laser TVs. Chen Jin truly could not defend against mom's techniques. Her acting was too professional and too real. Chen Jin, who was initially armed with a stubborn and tough attitude, was instantly cowed. Tears are a woman's greatest weapon. Moreover, it was his own mother, how could he not back down when faced with her tears? Well, a blind date it is. I shall fight fire with fire. Shedding my bachelor status, humph. It's impossible, nobody can take me down. Having prepared his countermeasures, Chen Jin's heart was filled with confidence. On the planet of Higher Fa, at the camping ground in the huge crater, some significant changes had taken place. The robots, including Dali, had brought back some items from the city of Therese. They were not precious metals and jewelry, but some high-tech products, amongst which were some laser TV boxes about the size of a Rubik's Cube. The laser TV box was kind of similar to film projection in traditional cinema, where it projected an HD quality video via a beam of light. However, the videos projected were mostly of 8K UHD quality, the images were ultra-clear. In addition, after putting on the specialized glasses to view the 3D videos under a specific format, it would feel as if a movie was being played out right in front of your eyes. One would feel an even higher level of immersion. I think a similar kind of laser TV has already been launched on Earth. Doesn't Demi Company sell a type of laser TV for only $9,999? It's just that it has larger make and the video quality is only 1080p. Moreover, it can't play 3D videos, so the viewing experience is not too different from watching normal TV. The laser TV that I have right now is roughly about 1/5 of the size of the Demi laser TV, and can be enlarged to half its size. As for its other features, there was no need to do significant modifications on them. It could be manufactured on Earth straight away and sell like hotcakes for sure. Without a doubt, it would be wildly popular. The laser TV had a small make and was light and portable. The projected video could be freely expanded or shrunk on a 30 to 150-inch surface. With a relatively high video quality of 8K and the capacity to play videos in 3D format, it was very clear that the laser TV was the trend of future development. If Chen Jin entered this industry, his future wealth prospect would certainly be rosy. Furthermore, he would not have to worry that it would lead to too great of a problem. This was because the laser TV was a product that was already available on Earth. The model that he would bring back was not based on wholly new technology from a futuristic era. It was only a product made with a slightly more advanced technology, so its impact on Earth would not be too revolutionary. One must be aware, to be half a step ahead of the crowd makes you a genius, but to be a full step ahead makes you a lunatic. Moreover, you would be targeted as a cash cow. The laser TV that Chen Jin held was a product that was half a step ahead and could definitely be introduced into Earth. Similar to the robot vacuum sweeper, the laser TV could be included in Chen Jin's business development plan. However, he did not yet possess the technology needed to manufacture these laser TVs. Thus, he could only let the idea ferment in his mind. I must increase the strength and magnitude of my exploration on Higher Fa in order to find a way to get my hands on this technology. Besides this, Chen Jin also set his vision on other high-tech products, such as the home computer. The home computers on Higher Fa were not too different than the ones on Earth. It had a squarish CPU, an ultra-thin curved screen, and even its mouse and keyboard were very similar to those on Earth. One can infer that even after 100 years, there would not be too big a change to home computers. The outer appearance would not be greatly modified. However, the home computers on Higher Fa could not be brought back to Earth. It was because the CPU inside the all-solid motherboard was made of graphene, which is an entirely new nanomaterial. With a well-crafted technological process of 3 nanometers, the output of work could reach 100 GHz while significantly reducing power consumption. Its overall capability was more than 20 times greater than that of the most advanced CPU on Earth. It was technology that was definitely ahead by more than a step. He could not imagine the uproar that it could cause if he brought it back to Earth now. As someone who liked to keep a low profile, Chen Jin was obviously unequipped to deal with such a complex scenario. He had an even greater desire to not attract any attention. The home computer category had to be put on hold temporarily. However, there was also a collapsible mobile phone that could project images and videos. The phone had a 4.8-inch collapsible screen that could be expanded from its surface. It also had touch screen functions. Its screen projection function, however, needed to be used with specialized smart glasses in order to see the content of the projection. Hence, it was excellent for protecting one's privacy. The phone worked primarily via motion sensing. With only the size of a wristwatch, it could project a virtual screen of 5 to 15 inches. Chances of a fault happening in its operations were extremely low as it was installed with a high-precision microwave radar. Furthermore, it came equipped with a smart language assistant that could accurately recognize and distinguish more than 99.9% of sentences' meanings. Its intelligence was equivalent to that of an 18-year-old human. Hence, the screen projector mobile phone was yet again another high-tech product that was ahead of Earth by more than a step. I'll have to wait at least 10 years before there'll be similar screen projector phones available on Earth. It's not yet time for it to face the world. There were also handheld game units and learning devices. Both of these had an appearance that seemed to be composed by flat boxes. The game unit came with 2 standalone Bluetooth joysticks while the learning device came with a touch pen. Both had screen projector functions. They could project within a range of 10 to 30 inches. However, there was a particular handheld game unit with high-end configurations that used a laser projection technology similar to the laser TV. Its projected screen had a maximum size of 120 inches. It felt so awesome playing games on this screen size. Grasping the high-end handheld game unit under Dali's guidance and interpretation, he played a game called Drive Angry. The beautiful scenery in the game was reminiscent of those in movies, combined with advanced ray tracing techniques and a large projected screen. Playing an intense and explosive yet smooth chase scene made Chen Jin shout with joy. This is definitely how games should be like in the future. Letting go of the joysticks, Chen Jin sighed emotionally. Under normal rates of progression, how long must I wait before there will be games like this available on Earth? Standing at his side, Dali heard his muttering and interrupted his thoughts. My master, this handheld game unit that you are playing now is actually a technological product on higher Fa that has been culled as being too outdated. The technology behind this game had stopped progressing about 8 or 9 years ago and it had not been updated or renewed for more than 10 years. The games loaded into it are antiquated and not popular amongst the humans, only teenagers and children play it occasionally to pass time. The grown-ups don't play these games. What? Dali's words caused Chen Jin to go red with embarrassment. He gave an awkward cough. An outdated product. Technology that had been stuck for more than 10 years. The games that were loaded into it were antiquated. The grown-ups didn't play them. These words made Chen Jin felt like he wanted to kick the game unit and order Dali to tear them apart, reducing them to scraps of junk. Damn it, it was too embarrassing. He was praising it to high heavens not 1 moment ago, and Dali had immediately degraded it to the level of trash. Dali, then why don't you tell me? What is considered a good game? A game for the grown-ups. Gritting his teeth, Chen Jin bit out each word slowly. If Dali was unable to give a satisfactory answer, Chen Jin, in his current unhappy and resentful mood, would have to punish it harshly to put it back in its place. It's this, my master. Dali walked to the pile of high-tech items. Bending at his waist and searching through the assortment of haphazardly stacked electronics, it fished out a worn-out, modeled headgear that had several delicate wires attached to its surface. It placed the headgear in front of Chen Jin. This is a simulated reality headset, master. It was once bought by over 70% of the humans on this planet. They lived, worked, gamed, and enjoyed their artificial lives in the world of simulated reality. A great amount of their time was spent here daily. Compared to this headset, those outdated handheld game units can only be considered as children's puzzle games. A simulated reality headset? Fixing his gaze on it, Chen Jin felt a tremor in his heart. Higher Fa actually has such an awesome item as a simulated reality headset? Chapter 24, Zhao Xian. A simulated reality headset. Its grand reputation preceded it. With the simulated reality headset, one could experience reality in the virtual matrix and play massive online games in it. But the truth was that the simulated reality headset was only a trendy concept on Earth, it was never truly realized. It had not stepped out of the conceptual zone to become a tangible object. At most, it had mutated into the so-called VR, which enabled one to be immersed in the experiences of some interactive 3D scenarios. However, it was still a far stretch from the legendary simulated reality headset. In order to make the simulated reality headset into a tangible object, the issues surrounding the control of brain waves and connections to the nervous system would have to be resolved first. Players could move about freely in the simulated world while the body would remain motionless in reality. Moreover, based on the strength of responses from the nervous system, the level of reality should reach 10%, 20%, or even 60%. The higher the level of reality, the better. It would be best if it was nearest to 100%. Li told Chen Jin that the simulated reality headset that he had was an 8th-generation product manufactured by Green Continental Company. It could achieve an 87% level of reality. It possessed the highest technological standard in the range of simulated reality headsets. A simulated world with an 87% level of reality. I wonder what kind of experience would that be? A look of intense yearning appeared on Chen Jin's face. But, even with the simulated reality headset, he was still unable to play its games. It was because all the remote servers had either been destroyed or shut down. Without a connection to the internet and no cloud data, one could not enter the simulated reality with just the headset. To Chen Jin, this was undoubtedly a regret. Hey! Isn't there a supercalculator in the town hall in the city of Therese? Does it have the data needed to enter the simulated reality? Li said, that calculator may be able to fire up the system of the simulated reality headset, but master, the supercalculator uses a very large amount of power. To start that calculator, it needs at least 100 kilowatts of electrical power. We do not have that amount of power. 100 kilowatts. Chen Jin was somewhat tongue-tied. It seemed like the power shortage at the camp needed to be resolved urgently. He had to think of a way to get some power supply equipment over here. You all get that supercalculator back to camp, I will think of a way to solve the shortage of electrical power. Yes, master. Li accepted this task. Besides this, he had to increase the speed of his exploration of higher Fa. Actually, Chen Jin had always been putting effort into it. After scouring the city of Therese, he sent out Exploration Squad No. 2 on Blue Angel to survey the surroundings of the huge crater, up to about a distance of a few hundred kilometers. With this, he could create a map of the surrounding areas. Squad No. 2 returned to the campground yesterday, and reported their results. Master, the survey of the campground's surroundings have been completed. We found 53 abandoned small towns, 128 abandoned farms and 1 abandoned factory. Chen Jin's eyes gleamed, and he asked, an abandoned factory? What kind of factory is it? A furniture manufacturing factory, master. Is there any valuable technological information inside the factory? No, that factory had been abandoned for a very long time, master. Oh, Chen Jin's eyes dulled and he laughed at himself. It was a furniture factory, what kind of high-tech information was I expecting to find in there? If he could find a heavy industrial factory or an armament factory etc., he could definitely reap great rewards. Therefore, he still had to increase the pace of his exploration of the outer areas. However, only the road leading to the city of Therese from the eastern highway could be passed without obstacles. Continuing on the highway towards the south, there was a highway bridge that was destroyed by war and thus impassable. Coming out of the city of Therese, within several miles to the north was the scene of a major vehicular accident. The highway was jammed full of various models of run-down cars. As the congestion lasted more than 10 kilometers, the road was totally impassable. Li said, about 120 kilometers from the north of the city of Therese lies a mid-sized city called Fort Worth. It had a population of over 500,000. The cars jammed on the highway to the north could have came from Fort Worth. This was because the huge crater that Chen Jin was standing in now used to be a major emergency shelter. When war arrived, people from the surrounding areas fled in this direction. Fort Worth City? Population of 500,000. The words cash cow popped up in Chen Jin's mind. And a big one, too. He developed the idea and impulse to go Fort Worth City and scour the city. However, the highway was jammed and impassable. He could follow the highway by taking the flat desert ground beside it. But it would be difficult for Blue Angel's low chassis, it could easily break down halfway or meet with other troubles. Chen Jin's gaze came to rest on a large agricultural vehicle similar to a combine harvester. As the city of Therese was an agriculture-based city, it had plenty of large machinery for its farms. They were big, with a high chassis that was ideal for driving through the wilderness. After a series of modifications, they would be more suitable for the exploration of this planet. Chen Jin planned to restore one of the agricultural machines and assign it as the expedition vehicle for the exploration of this world. But to remodel it into an expedition vehicle was something that required a high level of technical skills. Chen Jin normally had no interest or experience in cars. He only had a superficial knowledge in repairing cars. If he was to remodel a farm machine into an expedition vehicle, would he not just be working blind? Naturally, he could get the medical robot, Dabao, to assist him. But Dabao's specialty was in servicing and repairing the robots, it was not too good at remodeling a vehicle. At most, it could only keep itself occupied with busy work. Chen Jin still had to do the primary work himself. The problem was that Chen Jin did not have the knowledge either. What to do? Of course, he had to learn how to repair cars. It would not be necessary to master the skill, some basic skills for a beginner would suffice. As luck would have it, Chen Jin had a friend who was simply a demon at remodeling cars. There was no car that he could not remodel, no faults that he could not repair. Chen Jin planned to seek his help by apprenticing himself for a few days and learning some technical skills on repairing a car. On the second day, at an automobile market in the west of the city, there was an auto sales service center named Belief of the Light. Zhao Xian, this is the $5,000 that I borrowed from you last month. I'm returning it. Retrieving half a stack of red-colored bills, Chen Jin presented them to a young man who had a cigarette dangling from his mouth and hands covered with engine oil, yet his hairstyle remained on point. The initial impression he gave was carefree, uninhibited, handsome, and easily stylish. The bad boy vibe that he exuded, together with a slightly nefarious smirk, held a fatal charm for some women. It was said that women over 30 years old accounted for a third of the car sales in this service center. Some bought more than one car. Why did those women like to buy cars so much from this auto center? The reasons remained totally unknown. The boss of this auto sales service center was Zhao Xian, who was Chen Jin's classmate for 3 years of high school. In addition, they went to the same university and had a solid friendship. In other words, his good bro Zhao Xian was the only close friend that he could rely on and trust with total confidence. Zhao Xian's family background was way better than Chen Jin's. His parents owned a big corporation and he himself was worth trillions. Under his skillful management, this auto sales service center that he started had annual profits in the tens of millions, essentially making him a nouveau riche. Due to his expert skills in both remodeling and racing cars, his nickname Big Brother Xian was famous in the underground racing world. Looking at the bills in front of him and shaking his head, Zhao Xian said, "Why are you returning this? It's just $5,000. Don't return it, I don't need this spare change. I still have to return it even if it's 50 cents. Hurry and take it." Calling over Xiao Li at the front desk, Zhao Xian ordered her to take the money away. "Xiao Li, take the money and book a high-class hotel. I will treat everyone to dinner today." "Hooray, boss! Hooray, Big Brother Xian!" The staff in the auto center instantly rejoiced, their morale greatly boosted. Chen Jin shook his head in impatience. He had known Zhao Xian for 7 to 8 years and his nature was still the same. He was unwilling to come into contact with money and regarded it as dirt. As he had no concept of money, the tens of millions in annual profits were frequently squandered. But he could not have treated the staff in his auto center any better. Some of the master repair technicians stayed working in the center for a few years. Other auto sales service centers could not lure them away even with an annual salary in the millions. Sometimes they were lured away but they always returned after a short time. It was the strangest thing. After returning his money, Chen Jin stated his purpose in coming over. He wanted to be his apprentice for a few days to learn some skills in car repair and service. "You want me to teach you how to repair cars?" Zhao Xian looked at him in shock. Taking away the cigarette tip at the corner of his lips, he asked rather sternly, "Are you sure you are not joking with me? Since when were you this interested in repairing cars?" Nodding his head, Chen Jin replied, "I'm not joking. I really do want to learn something about repairing cars. This work is not easy. It's dirty and tiring, are you sure you want to learn? Yeah, I plan to be around and really learn something for a few days. I can pay a fee to learn. Zhao Xin waved his hand and said, you don't have to pay a school fee. Since you're interested, just come over and learn for a few days. We'll teach you hand-ons. If you can't take the hardship, you can give up any time and just treat it as a life experience. Okay, thanks Zhao Xin. Smiling blandly, Zhao Xin looked at Chen Jin with his pale skin and skinny physique. He knew that Chen Jin had homebody syndrome. Thinking silently in his mind, he wondered how long he would last. 2 days? 3 days? Or even just 1 day? In any case, there was no way this fellow could persevere for more than 5 days. Chapter 25, Zhongnan. In the auto repair garage, Chen Jin began learning from Zhao Xin the skills needed to repair a car. Actually, many faults in a car don't require the major hassle of changing parts. A few simple fixes would do the trick. For example, stones are lodged in the tire tread, causing an overly loud friction noise. But, the stones are hard to extract. The next best method to reduce the noise is not to change the tires, but to simply install a sound-deadening foam inside the tires. It would solve the problem just as well. When a car engine vibrates vigorously when it is started, it's probably due to a lack of power from misfiring engine cylinders. This is caused by either carbon buildup or an aging ignition system. It only requires a run at high speed or a change of spark plugs. It could be difficult to start your car in the winter. This is usually caused by a low battery voltage. Prepare a basin of hot water and pour it over the battery to increase its temperature. Once the car starts, immediately drive to a repair shop to get the battery checked. Throughout his learning, Zhao Xin left nothing out. He imparted much valuable experience and many clever techniques. Chen Jin listened with utmost seriousness. He nodded his head repeatedly, feeling that he had learned a lot. In the meantime, he also raised his own questions. Zhao Xin, do you think that electric cars could ever replace petrol cars? No. At least not in the present. There are still some flaws with the electric car that puts it in an inferior position as compared to the petrol car. Petrol cars will still be around for at least another 50 years. Didn't you say that the composition of the electric car is simple? It can do without the complicated oil circuit and traditional system, also making the gearbox unnecessary. It's also easier to fix than the petrol car and has a better acceleration ability. With the exception of a troublesome charging process, all other points are to its advantage. Zhao Xin shook his head. The car is a tool to harness and manage speed. Its convenience lies in its ability to start and accelerate at any time. The electric car does not possess this advantage. It has a slow charging process and is not able to travel continuously for long distances. People who really understand automobiles will not favor electric vehicles. Chen Jin asked, what if the battery of the electric car has a higher efficiency than gasoline? And it's also paired with a quick charging system that can result in a full charge within 15 minutes. What do you think about this kind of electric car? Holding a tool, Zhao Xin abruptly halted the movements of his hands. After a period of silence, he said, then it's the future. A future where all petrol-based cars will become obsolete. Chen Jin also put down the socket spanner in his hands and said, Zhao Xin, is there a mentor in this center who knows how to fix electric cars? I want to learn from him how to repair them. Zhao Xin was surprised and looked at him with a strange expression. You don't think that electric cars can immediately replace petrol-based cars, right? As I've said, it will take at least 50 years for that to happen. Also, the number of electric cars registered within our country is less than 1 million. If you're only learning how to repair electric cars, you'll starve to death. I'm not trying to make a living from this. I'm just more interested in electric cars and want to have a greater understanding of it. All the cars in Higher 4 ran on electricity. It would obviously be a mismatch of the skills required if Chen Jin learned how to fix internal combustion cars. Glancing at him, Zhao Xin said impatiently, okay, Mentor Sun is an expert in fixing electric cars. Follow and learn from him. In his heart, he thought, repairing electric cars is a much easier process. Is Chen Jin trying to slack off? Mentor Sun was a spry middle-aged man. Zhao Xin let him lead Chen Jin to an adjacent garage where the electric cars were repaired so that he could start learning how to repair them. Vroom. Vroom vroom vroom. A red sports car with a scarred, deformed body including a rear bumper full of dents came rushing into the garage. Screech. Just as it was about to hit someone, it suddenly braked. The red sports car drifted for half a meter and firmly stopped in front of its audience. A young man wearing hip-hop style clothing and ears full of studs stepped out from the car. His expression was rebellious and flamboyant. Same old rules. Repair this Ferrari champion warrior. Yesterday, it won me yet another victory. Brother Xin, since you stopped racing cars, I've already won 3 races as the race king. As he spoke, the young man rushed towards Zhao Xin, who was attentively fixing a car. Zhao Xin remained unmoved as he continued to be engrossed in his work. The staff of the auto center crowded around the young man. Brother Xing, you took down another race king. The prize for taking down a race king is $1 million. So, Brother Xing, you earned another $1,000,000. A female staff with pretty looks leaned over. Brother Xing, when will you take me to experience it? I can be your lady when you chase the wines. Brother Xing, I have a Wuling Hongguang, but I want to learn from you how to race cars. Such expressions came from the crowd surrounding him. The man called Brother Xing was really enjoying this. Sitting on the hood of his car, he began to brag. It's not a problem if you want to learn how to race cars from me. But if you want to be the lady to my wind chaser, you'll have to give me a kiss first. He leaned his face towards the female staff and enjoyed a sweet kiss. Looking over again at Zhao Xin who was still repairing his car, he raised his voice. Actually, if you want to talk about racing skills, Brother Xin is the undisputed champion. But since he does not do street racing, S-curve speeding or drifting anymore, he hasn't participated in our competitions for 3 months. Brother Xin, let's go for a race. Everyone misses you so much. It's impossible to hold a proper underground race competition without you. How would I even win the title as race king? Towards the end, Brother Xing's tone became pleading as he eagerly beseeched. Zhao Xin was the soul of the underground car races. With him around, numerous expert racers would be drawn to the races. Even those from abroad would come to seek out his name. Each race would be extremely exciting and got one's adrenaline pumping. But without Zhao Xin around, the underground races had quieted down within a mere 3 months to the point where there were only 10 or so participants who were racing only to amuse themselves. Even someone like Brother Xing, who possessed only average skills, could win the title of Race King 3 times. One could imagine how pathetic the races had become. Tang Xing, can you shut your mouth and stop trying to sway my husband? An angry voice could be heard. The audience turned their heads, and Tang Xing quickly shut his mouth. The staff dispersed at once as they rapidly went back to their positions. The lady boss was here. That's right. Even though Zhao Xin was only 25, he was a married man. Moreover, he married straight after graduating from university. To date, he had been married for almost 4 years. Actually, there was a twist in the middle of this story. Zhao Xin got a girlfriend while he was attending university, and they had very good relationship going on. His girlfriend was very pretty too and was publicly acknowledged as the top beauty within campus. In addition, she had a good personality and character. They were a match made in heaven and was a couple envied by all in the university. Immediately after graduation, both decided to register their marriage as the relationship was going very well. They wanted to live their lives together in the sweetness of love and be each other's forever after. There was a bit of a cock-up in the end. Zhao Xin did not marry his girlfriend, the bride became someone else. It was because after knowing that he was from a very rich family, Zhao Xion's future in-laws increased the bride price at the last minute. They made voracious demands. The original betrothal gifts were $500,000 and a car. Now they wanted $5 million and a house. The $5 million was for the parents as a show of filial piety and the house was for her younger brother to use as his marital home after he got married. Met with such ridiculous demands, it was thought that she would refuse on Zhao Xion's behalf. Unexpectedly, she did not speak one word in protest. On the contrary, she even tried to persuade Zhao Xian to acquiesce to her parents' demands. She was firmly on her parents' side. At this moment, the wedding ceremony was about to begin. Zhao Xian's family was facing a full turnout of guests without the bride present. It was undoubtedly a huge blow to his family. It seemed as if they were about to lose face in a big and public way. Seconds turned into minutes and the bride's family still refused to budge in their demands. Zhao Xian was extremely displeased. It was not that he could not bear to part with $5 million in a house, but that he could not stand their greed for riches. The way they tried to take advantage of him was too ugly and disgusting. He even had the impulse to just leave and call off the wedding. At this time, Chen Jin, who was acting as his groomsman, made a suggestion which made Zhao Xian's eyes light up. Jiangnan lives near here. She's been secretly in love with you for 6 years. Why don't you propose to her and let her be your bride to complete this wedding ceremony? Chen Jin was acquainted with Jiangnan and knew that she always had feelings for Zhao Xian. Otherwise, why would she apply to an inferior vocational university when her grades were in the top 3 in school? Fine, I don't want this woman anymore. I want to marry Jiangnan. That afternoon, just before the start of the wedding ceremony, Zhao Xian and Chen Jin took the bridal car and sped to Jiangnan's home. There, they saw Jiangnan, who had been crying in misery for a long time. Opening the door, Zhao Xian, who was decked out in his bridegroom's clothing, got down on one knee and presented a diamond ring. He proposed to her and asked, "Jiangnan, will you marry me?" Jiangnan was in great shock. After understanding the situation, she started crying tears of joy, and shouted, "Yes, I will." The wedding proceeded smoothly. After the wedding ended, the girlfriend and her family got wind of the fact that the bride was another woman. At that point, they started screaming to the high heavens as they lost their minds collectively. The entire family acted as if they were mentally ill. Thus they became the well-known laughingstock in their locale and were the butt of many jokes. And Jiangnan was now married to Zhao Xian as husband and wife. She married the love who she most wanted. Undoubtedly, Jiangnan was very grateful to Chen Jin, who had made great efforts in this entire process. Privately, she gave him a $50,000 red packet, which was the biggest one of all. When she normally met Chen Jin, she was also very well-mannered and affectionate towards him. Spotting Chen Jin in the car repair garage, Jiangnan came over to greet him. "Hey, Chen Jin, what are you doing here?" Holding a spanner with hands full of engine oil, Chen Jin wiped the sweat on his head and replied, "Oh, hey sister, I became more interested in fixing cars recently, so I came over to understand more about it." Jiangnan said with a smile, "All right, stay here for lunch and have a taste of my cooking skills." She was not a girl with outstanding features, her looks could only be average. However, her smile was very appealing and made her feel extremely amiable. According to Zhao Xian, her dishes were very delicious, on par with the national top chefs. Chen Jin nodded his head. After chatting for a bit, he could not help but voice his question, "Sis, I heard from the person out there that Zhao Xian had not been racing for 3 months. Didn't he become so skilled in modifying cars just for the purpose of racing? Why doesn't he race now? Zhao Xian was addicted to cars, why would his nature suddenly change?" Jiangnan blushed. As she was about to speak, a surge of acid rose up her throat. Abruptly, she clutched her stomach and dry-retched. Chen Jin seemed to have understood something. "Sis, you..." She nodded, replying, "It's been 3 months. Zhao Xian is about to become a father." Pursing her lips in a smile, she flushed red in happiness. "So it's like that." All at once, Chen Jin understood. Chapter 26, Rover Number 1. Chen Jin understood Jiangnan's words. Because Zhao Xian would soon be promoted to a father, he could not race cars anymore. He also could not do other dangerous activities. This unruly wastrel would have to return home to the roles of a good husband and a good father. Zhao Xian, this carefree and uninhibited 25-year-old man, had to become more reliable, more mature, and pay more attention to his little family unit. Or perhaps, when his child has grown up and learned how to listen attentively, Zhao Xian would proudly narrate the vibrancy of his youth. Within the worshipful gaze of his child, he would look forward to the grandiose moment when he received the epithet of Race King. As he thought of this scene, a shiver ran through Chen Jin's body. A voice in his heart shouted, "I don't want this. It's too scary." On the contrary, Zhao Xian, who was sitting across the dining table from him, remained unaffected. He even picked up some food with his chopsticks for Jiangnan. It was way beyond Zhao Xian's expectations. Chen Jin, who had expressed that he wanted to learn some car repair skills, actually persevered for 7 days in a row in the auto center garage. He had a very proper attitude for learning that had no fear of hardship or exhaustion. As he conducted his learning seriously, he successfully realized the goal of rapidly entering the industry. Moreover, he even helped mentor son repair a faulty Tesla Model S on the 6th day. To that end, he contributed a lot of effort. Mentor Sun had a major overhaul of his impression of Chen Jin. Privately, he told Zhao Xin, "I've seen more serious students than him when it comes to learning how to drive. But as for learning how to repair cars, there are not many as serious as him amongst my students." "Boss, didn't you say that his family is rich and he's only here for fun?" Opening and closing his mouth, his eyes wide with surprise, Zhao Xin spread his hands out helplessly and said, "How would I know?" This was not his style in the past. On the 8th day, Chen Jin stopped regularly going to the auto center. In Haifa, he had thrown himself fully into the vigorous work of remodeling an agricultural machine into an expedition vehicle. Actually, this work consisted of some difficulties. The biggest challenge was, how would he transport that agricultural machine from the city of Taris to the campground? At more than 10 tons, one of those machines weighed about 10 times that of a passenger sedan. How would he get such a cumbersome object back to the campground? After some careful thought, Chen Jin adopted two solutions. One was to increase the number of exploration squads from 2 to 4, the second was that the total number of robots would be increased to 20. Each robot could carry 200 kilograms. It followed that the 20 robots could, as a group, carry an object weighing 7 or 8 tons. In addition, the combine harvester might be heavy, but it was also composed of several modules. He could disassemble the lighter modules and transport them separately. With the exception of the engine and the transmission control module, the robots could carry the rest of the modules back to the campground. As for the remaining parts like the tires, chassis, engine, transmission box, etc., that could not be easily dismantled. They weighed in at around 5 or 6 tons. These were pulled by Blue Angel leading in the front and more than 10 robots pushing from the back. Using this method and more than 2 days, the machine was slowly brought into the campground. After Chen Jin had completed his studies on car repairs and returned to the campground, the separate modules from the combine harvester were laid out in front of him. However, there was a price to pay. The robots, including Dali, had basically used up all of their power. Blue Angel's power charge had also dropped below safety levels. All of them were queued up beside the charging post, waiting to be charged. Following which, Chen Jin was faced with even more challenging work. How would he repair and remodel this combine harvester with a length of 9 meters, a height reaching 4 meters, a width of 4.5 meters, topped off with a total weight of 13 tons? Chen Jin spent about half a day coming up with and deciding on a plan of action to remodel it. The first step was reduction. He would take down the harvesting unit from this machine. For example, the harvest drum on its front and the conveyor belt and threshing unit in its middle could be dismantled. Most of the units for harvesting could be eliminated. After a round of reduction, the weight of the combine harvester would drop to 10 tons. The grain tank at the rear was modified into a big cargo storage area that could hold a huge number of items. It would make his exploration process more convenient. In addition, he installed an excavation bucket on its front. If he met with any obstacles on the road, he could clear it away. This would increase the ease of the vehicle's passage. He also installed a cable pulling system, an emergency first aid kit, a water pump and fire extinguishing unit, a standby generator, and so on. All of these required additional installations and preparations to increase the safety coefficient when exploring outdoors. Hence, for the next half of the month, Chen Jin's focus at work was fully engaged in remodeling the expedition vehicle. Using a large amount of energy and money, he finally completed the repair and remodel of the expedition vehicle. An expedition vehicle named Rover No. 1 was laid out in front of Chen Jin. After spraying a layer of silver paint on its exterior, he was completely finished. Rover No. 1 was enormous, imposing, elegant, and infused with a modern, industrial aesthetic. He let out a long breath of relief. With both hands on his waist, Chen Jin felt a deep sense of accomplishment, and he was overwhelmed with emotion. In this half a month of remodeling Rover No. 1, he had to solve numerous problems, both big and small. For example, the problem of finding matching tires. The 4 original tires of Rover No. 1 had long decayed past the point of utility. He could not find a whole and working tire for replacement. Thus, he had to purchase them from Earth. The problem was that the tires used by Rover No. 1 had a diameter of 1.5 meters, but the portal only had a diameter of 1 meter. It was impossible to squeeze a whole tire through. At this time, Chen Jin could only seek advice from Zhao Xin. He asked if there was a type of tire that could be assembled from many smaller parts into a large tire. Zhao Xin shook his head, I don't think this type of tire exists. Mentor Sun interrupted from the side, I've heard of a type of tire, it's not composed of several parts but is assembled using thin loops of tire material that are stacked together to form a large tire. Yes, this is the type of tire that I want. Chen Jin was extremely delighted. With the guidance of Mentor Sun, he was able to get into contact with a factory that manufactured layered tire materials that could be assembled into a large tire. He made his request to the factory. However, the factory did not manufacture the tire layers in the measurements that Chen Jin required. Unless it received an order worth $2 million or more, it would not begin production of a new model. I'll fork out $2 million. But I want it ready in 5 days. Manager Song of the factory was stumped. Gritting his teeth, he thought, wasn't it only money? He's got money. Finally, he beat his chest as he guaranteed, I assure you, you'll see your product in 5 days. After 5 days, the tire layers of a suitable quality were successfully manufactured and Chen Jin brought it to the campground. Twining the loops of tire layers together, he made a large tire with the required measurements. Using a specialized industrial strength glue to piece the layers together, the weight of the tire would not differ too much from a normal tire. Moreover, he would not have to worry about the tire blowing. To date, the modification of rover number 1 was basically completed. As he drove one round in the crater, it felt very stable and was very responsive to speed changes. It would definitely satisfy the fancy of people who love to drive large-sized vehicles. But, a new problem followed. A power shortage. There were a total of 100 high-efficiency batteries in the battery chamber of rover number 1. It had 10 times as many batteries as Blue Angel. It could charge more than 3,600 kilowatts an hour. No matter if he let rover number 1 have all the power from the 30 kilowatt charging post, it would still take 5 whole days for a full charge. However, the robots needed power too. He could not let rover number 1 have all the power for charging. He had to resolve the power shortage issue immediately. Chapter 27, A Transition Program. How to solve the power shortage at the campground in the crater. As early as more than half a month ago, Chen Jin was racking his brain over this issue. Of course, the best solution was to build a power generating facility in the campground's periphery. It would solve the power shortage issue. But the cost of this solution would be higher. Take the example of the wind turbine, the acquisition cost of each watt of energy was around $10. To solve the power shortage at the campground, he currently needed 200 kilowatts. Multiply that number by $10 and the acquisition cost of a wind turbine came up to around $2 million. Chen Jin could still afford to pay this little bit of money. The funds from the auctions in Sotheby's was transferred over 2 days ago. All the items that he had put up for sale were auctioned off. The total transactions amounted to $15,580,000. Subtracting 10% brokerage fees, about $14 million was transferred to his account. In addition, he had another $80,000 or so as leftover. Chen Jin had almost $15 million on him now. It was not a big deal taking out $2 million to set up some wind turbines in the surrounding area of the campground to solve the power shortage. However, Chen Jin could not forget that to build a wind turbine, he needed to inject not only funds but labor into the project as well. He would have to single-handedly carry around 10 different components of the generator up to his bedroom on the 3rd floor before squeezing them through the portal in his toilet. Based on the calculation that the equipment making up one generator weighed 300 kilograms, he would have to transport various items totaling over 5,000 kilograms. Furthermore, the blades of a wind turbine usually had a length of more than 3 meters. There were even longer versions at 10, 20, and 30 meters. Some had even more ridiculous lengths at 50 meters. After measuring the lengths of his living room and bedroom, Chen Jin realized that the length of the blade could not exceed 4.5 meters. Otherwise, it would not be able to get through the portal. Besides, even if he successfully transported the wind turbine to the campground, with its complementary power storage equipment, voltage transformer, and a metal pole to support the turbine, he still had to purchase a batch of reinforced concrete to carry out stabilizing work on its foundation. Or else how would the wind turbine work? To sum up, it would be a very troublesome matter to build a wind power station in the campground's surrounding areas. Moreover, Chen Jin did not know how much time he would spend on this project. 2 to 3 weeks were definitely insufficient. He would also be working like crazy. It would be very busy and tough for him. Hence, Chen Jin felt some hesitation as he thought of these issues. It was so troublesome to build a wind power station. Should he still do it? Li also told Chen Jin that there was actually a large amount of power-generating facilities littered all over Haifa. There were plenty of such facilities in a huge variety, including those for hydropower, wind power, thermal power, nuclear power, and so on. He only had to increase the range of his exploration and he would certainly find an abandoned power-generating facility. At that time, he would just have to fix one facility and the power shortage would be resolved. Take, for example, Fort Worth City to the north, which had a thermal power station and a number of wind generator units. While he was fixing the power generating facility in Fort Worth City, he would pull another power cable into the campground. Thus, the power shortage would be firmly resolved. All right. Nodding his head, Chen Jin said, "For now, I won't do wind turbines. I'll explore the surrounding areas first and see if there's any power generating facilities that are already present in the local area for me to use." The problem was that power was needed urgently at the campground right now. He had to immediately increase the total power output, otherwise the regular exploration tasks would be impacted. It would seriously reduce the efficiency of the exploration process. The power shortage issue was now at a critical stage where he had to take action. If not, the robots queuing beside the charging post would wait till the point that even their standby battery power were depleted. After some thought, Chen Jin came up with a compromised plan. He would take the high-efficiency batteries back to Earth. By renting a factory building and using some industrial-grade circuits with a high power output, he would charge the batteries in the building. This way, he could use electrical power for industrial purposes as a cover. Even if he used 10,000 kilowatts per hour of electricity each month, the staff at the electrical power department would still not uncover any issues. Moreover, he was allowed to install high-voltage cables in the use of industrial electricity. He could choose from 360V, 480V, or even more than 1000V even if it was highly dangerous. It would provide greater charging power and reduce the charging time. He considered all of these various advantages. On the morning of the second day, Chen Jin drove his mom's BMW Mini to Baoshan Industrial Park. Mom's department outfitted her with a company car. She only drove her personal car on her days off. Baoshan Industrial Park was very close to Happiness Court, separated by a distance of less than 10 kilometers. Travel was convenient, as the roads were wide and there were usually little cars. He could reach it with a 10-minute drive. The industrial park was also one of the earliest ones built within Shanghai City. It had a history of over 60 years and was basically the same age as the Republic. Within the industrial park were large-scale steel factories, thermal power factories, shipbuilding factories, aircraft manufacturing factories, and more. It was a famous heavy industrial manufacturing hub. Chen Gang worked in this park for a company that manufactured commercial passenger airliners. Within his company, he held the position of assistant chief engineer in the Department of Landing Gear Development. It was very likely that he could become the chief engineer in the future. This was a position that could occasionally land him some airtime in news series. Although Chen Gang's work was in the background, he had shown his face twice in the news program, including once where he posed in a photo with the top senior in his company. His family was very happy and proud of him. Compared to the accomplishments of his father, Chen Jin could only hang his head in shame. Although there were many large state enterprises that had been established for decades with staff numbering in the tens of thousands located in the industrial park, there were also many that had been shut down in the state enterprises restructuring program in the 90s. In addition, the economic situation was not good in recent years. Hence, there were even more small and medium enterprises that collapsed. Within the park were plenty of abandoned or closed-down factory buildings. Chen Jin sought out the manager of the park and requested to rent a small factory to start his business. The manager was pleased but had to reject his request after finding out that Chen Jin did not meet the conditions. It was because Chen Jin had no business experience, no registered company, no technical background, and definitely no responsible third party who was acting as the guarantor. Hence, the manager could not approve his request. In order to get the rights, Chen Jin let his father, Chen Gang, to come forth and act as the company's legal representative. Chen Jin became the company's executive manager and was in charge of the logistics. Using this method, he was successfully qualified to rent a small factory building that measured about 200 square meters. Also, he was able to enjoy the subsidies offered by the industrial park. He only had to pay an annual rent of $100,000 for the first 3 years. After renting the factory, inside the steel sheet factory, Chen Jin also got an electrician to install 2 cables comprised of industrial-grade circuits that could conduct 360V and 480V of electricity respectively. This was in addition to the normal 220V circuit. He also installed 100 charging ports that could all be utilized to charge 100 high-efficiency batteries at the same time. In order to maintain its secrecy, he put De Chiang in charge of charging and replacing the batteries in the sealed-off charging factory. Chen Jin snuck De Chiang into the factory and made him responsible for managing the precious high-efficiency batteries. In addition, Chen Jin hired a guard, paying him a salary of $3,000 a month to watch over the building's entrance. He was responsible for preventing strangers from entering the factory and formed the first line of defense in the perimeter. The person who applied was a man by the surname of Qin. He was a 65-year-old elderly man who was full of vigor and was frequently addressed as Uncle Qin. Chen Jin hired Uncle Qin because he had more than 20 years of experience as a guard, was not involved in any shady dealings, and had a good reputation. Moreover, Uncle Qin was all alone in the world and had no children. He was illiterate and could not make sense of profound topics, which was even more reassuring. A monthly salary of $3,000 was the highest that he was offered in his many long years of working. He could not help but grin from ear to ear in happiness. The artless Uncle Qin exclaimed, "It's too much. Young man, you're giving me too high of a salary, $2,000 is enough." "Uncle Qin, $3,000 per month is not too much. Accept it with ease of heart. You can save more for your retirement fund. When you're older, you won't have to worry. If you do a good job, I'll give you a raise and a bonus at the end of the year." "A raise? Year-end bonus?" Uncle Qin was stunned as he heard these alien terms. Then, he started tearing up. "Young man, I can't have this. I'm just a guard and not worth such a high salary. Being almost 70, it's hard to find a job and I was still thinking, I would work for some food and a bit of allowance. I never thought to meet such a generous young man." Uncle Qin, who had a face full of wrinkles and half a head of white hair, muttered to himself, I hope this young man's enterprise becomes successful and I can keep working at this factory." Chapter 28, Mom's Suspicion. After renting the factory and converting it into a charging facility, Chen Jin made 3 trips with his car to bring 200 plus large high-efficiency batteries and another 200 plus smaller ones into the charging facility. De Chiang was put in charge of charging them. With the charging capability of the facility, it would take a maximum of 2 days to fully charge all of these high-efficiency batteries. The home cable from the toilet that was pulled into the campground would not be retracted. But Chen Jin would control his use of electricity through that cable such that it would not reach ridiculous levels of tens of thousands of kilowatts per hour. Thus, the power shortage was temporarily resolved. He let out a long breath of relief. Lying on his soft big bed, he slept for 12 hours straight. During this month, Chen Jin was learning car repairs, remodeling an expedition vehicle, starting up a shell company, renting a factory. He was so busy it felt like he was in constant motion. He never had one good rest. He even had to take time out to participate in 2 blind dates that Mom had arranged for him. As he bounced between various matters, Chen Jin lost 2 or 3 kilograms. Muscles appeared on his arms and chest, turning him into a lean muscle man. The homebody image of his past seemed to have been gone for good. Today, he finally finished all the tasks that he had to attend to and could get a good rest for 2 days. After catching up on his sleep, National Day was approaching. Chen Jin planned to ask for some leave from his parents for the purpose of going on an overseas vacation with friends. He would be gone for around 7 days, and during that time he would not have much contact with his family. In reality, he planned to go into the portal and stay in Hierophant for 7 days. Riding on Rover No. 1, he would take with him 50 robots and travel more than 200 kilometers to the north towards Fort Worth City in a mighty manner. He planned to pick clean this mid-sized city that once had a population of more than 500,000. He would also check if there were any power-generating facilities and solve the power shortage once and for all. In short, there were things in Hierophant that required his attention. Yet, Li did not stop her efforts. On the contrary, she became even more puzzled and bewildered. For more than a month, she had arranged 3 blind dates for her son. The partners were all beauties with good looks, family backgrounds, characters, and personalities. They were excellent matches in terms of similar social statuses. Why did all 3 blind dates end without any conclusions? All the replies from the partners' parents were not suitable. Li persisted in questioning them, wanting to understand what the reasons were for failure. Why are they not suitable? What's the issue? But all she got were ambiguous answers. With her position in the tax bureau, nobody wanted to offend her by leaving a bad impression. The reason for the collective failure remained a mystery. At the dining table, Li impatiently asked, "Son, your looks aren't too bad and your personality is passable. You can do household chores, are well-mannered and hygienic, why don't the ladies fancy you?" She looked at Chen Jin, who was wolfing down his food. His soul seemed to be absent. Raising his head and with a vacant expression on his face, Chen Jin shook his head. "I don't know. Perhaps I'm not good enough for them." "Oh, so you know yourself too?" Chen Gang interjected with a taunting tone, "Even if there was a lady who was blind enough to marry you, after realizing that you are a homebody who devours the elderly, she'll probably ask for a divorce too. It's better that you don't cause harm to their future." Ouch! He snarled in pain as Li reached out and cruelly twisted the tender flesh on his waist, glaring at him with a burning gaze. It hurt so much that he shouted, "Let go, let go. I was wrong, wife, I was wrong. I'll kill you if you talk any more nonsense." Li's transformation into a female tiger frightened Chen Gang into breaking out in shivers. Chen Jin could not help but say, "Mom, Dad is right. I have not one good point, it's better not to trap and harm the ladies." "Nonsense!" Li refuted, "Lately, you've been going to Zhao Xian's auto center for more than 10 days to learn how to repair cars. And then you started up your own small company. Mom knows that you did all that. You weren't staying home much because you have your own ideas and business now. Which lady would not like such an ambitious man?" A mother knew her son best. Except for her work in the department, Li gave all her attention to her only son. She knew every move of her son like the back of her hand and had made her own conclusions. Hearing his mom, besides feeling a little touched, Chen Jin also felt goosebumps rising on his back. As it turned out, while he was doing all those activities recently, Mom's eyes were focused on him. She had always been silently watching him. This. Chen Jin did not know what to say. With a mom like this, he felt both lucky and vexed. As of this moment, he was feeling much more vexed. He thought, "Mom, please don't watch over me so closely. Loosen your grip and let me fly. I can be independent now." However, he heard a voice with an underlying tenacious tone. "Son, since you said that you'll be busy during the National Day holidays, I'll arrange another blind date for you tomorrow night and introduce a really pretty lady to you. Son, I can guarantee that you'll be pleased with her." Li gritted her teeth as she said that. She had decided to play her trump card this time round. "Mom, I don't want to go." Using gentle words, Li beseeched, "It's the last time. Can't you just try one last time? Son, take it that I'm begging you. If it doesn't work out again, Mom won't force you anymore. You can find someone on your own." However, a crafty gleam flitted across her eyes. Chen Jin's eyes brightened and he asked, "For real? It'll be the last blind date, and if it's not successful, you won't arrange any more for me? For real? Mom would never lie to you." Li thought, "I should have said, you had better not lie to me." Chen Jin readily replied, "Okay, decide on a place and I'll go over tomorrow night." It was only for an hour or so. He could get it done and over with as soon as possible. It was afternoon of the next day, in the tax bureau, in the office of the accounting director. "Come in." With a single knock, a voice could be heard coming from inside of the office. Su-Yun fixed her appearance and displayed a polite smile before entering the office. Li nodded her head in satisfaction. The assistant in front of her had a tall and slim figure, a decorous comportment and a low-key personality that was gentle and quiet. In addition, she was meticulous and patient while being ambitious at the same time. She pleased her in every aspect. But because of her flat face and sharp chin, she looked extremely aloof and cold. However, Li knew that her assistant had a kind and warm heart under that cold exterior. If not because of her ordinary family background, Li would have long ago introduced her to her son. Sun Yun asked with some apprehension, "Director, what did you call me for?" "Xiaosu, sit. Don't be nervous. It's not because of work that I asked for you this time around. I have a private matter. I need your help on something. Go on a blind date with my son. Rest assured, it's not a real blind date, it's a fake one. I want to confirm if that fellow is lying to me. Xiaosu, can you help me with this matter?" He Li briefly explained the situation and looked at her assistant with a pleading gaze. Blind. Blind date. Su Yun's face suddenly turned red. Pinching her finger, she twisted her body. She could never have imagined that the director would make such a request. To allow her to go on a blind date with her son. This. She felt very awkward. He Li explained, it's a fake blind date, it's just playing a game of pretend. Xiaosu, my son is turning 25 soon yet he's not married. It's making me anxious. I have no other choice at this time. I want to check if that little bastard is playing games with me. Xiaosu, help me with this. I'll definitely thank you properly. Okay. Okay, I agree. Su Yun nodded her head in agreement. She got her position as a civil servant by her own hard work and luck. To get to her position, she had to compete with thousands and even tens of thousands of others. Her family was very proud of her. She was determined to make a name for herself in this organization. But the most important requirement for her to stand above others was not outstanding professional skills, it was having good relationships with her superiors. Therefore, she dare not refuse the request that her superior made. Thank you, Xiaosu. As she watched Su Yun leave her office and the door shut behind her, He Li's gaze became stern and forceful. She thought, little bastard, don't even think about playing tricks with me. He's my son, no matter how terrible he is, it's impossible to be so terrible that a lady with proper working eyesight doesn't fancy him. It's 3 in a row that you said were not suitable for you. Either they really are blind or you're playing games. Of the two, He Li was leaning more towards the latter. Chapter 29, The Opponent is Too Strong. It was 7 o'clock at night, on the 3rd story of a mid-range cafe located in the city. According to the agreement, Chen Jin dressed simply. He saw his blind date partner at the number 6 table by the window, a beauty dressed conservatively with an aloof air about her. Based on his judgment, he would give her a mark of 90/100 in terms of looks. In addition, he could tell from her half-empty cup of coffee that she had been waiting for him for a while. You are Su Yun? I'm sorry for making you wait so long. Chen Jin walked over to her, giving his apologies. For his past 3 blind dates, he was always the early one. He never thought that today's partner would be earlier than him, and it made him feel rather embarrassed. It's okay, I just got here. Su Yun stood up nervously. Silently measuring the man in front of her, she thought, the director's son is not bad at all. He's quite well-mannered. You don't have to stand. Sit down, and let's talk. Chen Jin shook her hand. He realized that his partner today was quite different from the last 3. She seemed very nervous and restrained. Okay, she said. Still feeling somewhat constrained, Su Yun sat down. She did not know why she was so nervous about a game of pretend. Calling over the service staff, Chen Jin ordered 2 more coffees and some fruit plates. After a round of introductions and some pleasantries, Chen Jin began the proper topic in a manner familiar to him. Let's talk about our hobbies and interests. I prefer gaming and watching anime. Whenever I happen upon a good game, I'll usually play it until the next morning. And when there's a good anime that I enjoy, I can watch it day and night too. I really like 2-dimensional stuff, what do you like? He propped his chin on his hand, looking at her. I like them too. That was not what Chen Jin expected. Her answer was not grade 10 piano and grade 8 dance, preparing for TOEFL and IELTS, so I have no time for playing games and watching anime, or other such similar answers. She actually said she liked them too. Really? Can you give me a few examples? I don't really game, but I watch more anime than the average person. For example, I've watched Crayon Shin-chan, Doraemon, Tokyo Pig. I've also seen a little of Gigi Bond. Su Yun had a younger brother and sister who loved to watch those kinds of anime. She had watched a lot with them. Oh, Chen Jin suddenly realized that Su Yun watched anime that was meant for little kids, not adults. He never imagined that this cool and aloof beauty actually had a childish heart. Interesting. Looking at Chen Jin, who seemed to stare at her with a half-smile on his face, Su Yun realized that her answer was inappropriate and her face flushed red. With some regret, she thought, I was too dumb. How could I tell him the titles of the anime? He must be laughing at me. On the other hand, she was somewhat glad that she did not name Pleasant Goat and Boonie Bears. Looking at the beautiful lady who had a scarlet blush on her cheeks, Chen Jin suddenly thought that she had become more adorable. If this was the past, he would have definitely taken out his phone and asked for her WeChat. But now, he had to begin spreading his poison. Thus, after chatting for a while, he again started to peddle his marriage philosophy and values. I think that in my married life, my mom should occupy a higher position of priority than my wife. She has been through life, with decades of abundant life experience. She has more patience and wisdom to manage the various minute tasks of everyday life. Therefore, my wife should try her best to allow my mom to decide our family life after we are married, and respect her opinion. We should not act blindly. In addition, after marriage, I hope that my wife will be like me. She should respect and be filial towards my mom, and not stir up conflict with her or talk badly about her behind her back. More importantly, she should not anger my mom. I would be very unhappy about that. My mom gave birth to me and raised me. She lived a hard life. I am unable to accept my mom having to endure being bullied by her daughter-in-law instead of enjoying her old age. Since we are living together as a family, we should not fight over winning or losing. Someone would have to compromise. My mom has a very good temperament, she definitely would not hurt someone intentionally. If there was a conflict between her and my wife, then it must not be my mom's fault. So-yoon was dazed as she listened to Chen Jin's marriage philosophy and values. She neither nodded in agreement nor showed any obvious signs of being repelled. Her expression showed how bizarre and dumbfounded she felt. Under the table was a cell phone that she held. Via voice chat, it transmitted every single word that he said to another phone. Bang! Lee slammed her palm on the dresser beside her bed. With wide, glaring eyes, she gritted her teeth. What a disgraceful boy! How dare you play mind games with your mother, see how I'll punish you. She understood. She finally found the reason for the failures of her son's past blind dates. In reality, this disgraceful and scheming fellow was acting as a mommy's boy. By making up stories about the mother and daughter-in-law relationship, he had frightened all of his partners away. Immediately, she switched off her voice chat and called So-yoon. Ring ring. When So-yoon received the call, she stood up and prepared to go in the direction of the restroom. Sorry, I need to take this. Chen Jin nodded and said, go ahead. After 5 minutes, So-yoon returned. With a faint blush on her cheeks, she sat down across from Chen Jin again. Continuing from the previous topic of conversation, Chen Jin asked, so what do you think, So-yoon? Do you think that my words are reasonable? So-yoon nodded, yes, it sounds reasonable. What you said is very true. Pfft. Chen Jin spewed out his coffee. With a shocked expression, he looked at So-yoon and thought, aren't you supposed to leave? Why aren't you acting according to the script? Then do you think that the two of us are suitable? So-yoon stammered softly, yes, we're suitable. Her pretty face seemed to have been painted red. Pfft. Chen Jin spewed out yet another mouthful of coffee. With wide eyes and a face full of disbelief, he shouted loudly in his head, damn, even this works? I can get a victory even like this? Looking at So-yoon with her infinite shyness, beauty, and sweet nature, she seemed to have been superimposed onto the image of the perfect lover in his mind. He shook his head fiercely, thinking, no, I insist no. I definitely cannot bid farewell to my wonderful days as a bachelor and enter into the graveyard of marriage. No matter how pretty his partner was, it was a no. Freedom was priceless. So-yoon, actually I feel that we are not too suitable. Chen Jin said frankly, it's your first time meeting me so you wouldn't know how I'm really like. I'm very chauvinistic and don't know anything about romance. I'm incapable of remembering any of the special dates, such as Valentine's Day, Kixi, and my girlfriend's birthday. It's no use even if you remind me. I won't buy presents or give flowers. I'm too lazy to even give a $5.20 red packet. You'll never find happiness with a man like me. Chen Jin did not make up those words. He never failed to find special days like Valentine's, Kixi, and his girlfriend's birthday annoying. He just did not feel there was anything meaningful about those days. Women used those days as excuses to one-up each other. What did that have to do with him? What right did they have to affect his gamer lifestyle? His ex had tirelessly demanded a gift from him on Valentine's Day. In a fit of rage, he decisively announced that he wanted to break up. That's okay, I think that it's very normal. Those special days that you mentioned hold no significance for me either. On the contrary, I quite like celebrating Singles Day. So-yoon's reply actually satisfied the three values of his life as a straight man. First he was stunned, and then he gave a forced smile. Feeling at the end of his rope, he spread his hands and said, "Lady, I'm begging you to let me go. I'm still young and I don't plan to get married so early." As he picked up his phone and opened his WeChat, he was getting ready to say, "If you really think favorably of me and you're willing to wait, we can be friends on WeChat and get to know each other better first." Ring ring. Su Yun's phone rang and she again stood up, preparing to go to the restroom. She had hardly taken 2 steps before she turned back. Presenting her phone to Chen Jin, she said, "It's your mother, she has something to say to you." Chen Jin froze as if he were struck by lightning. "Little bastard, get home right now." The enraged shouting from the mobile phone made him feel as if he fell through a black hole. With her eyes smiling deeply in the shape of 2 crescent moons, Su Yun laughed lightly behind her hand. Chapter 30, A Deal. Standing in front of his mother, Chen Jin endured her monstrous rage as she reprimanded him. Her words were like a storm raining down upon him. He hung his head like a defeated rooster. Chen Gang was hiding at the side and secretly watching with glee. There were some moments where it was so hard to hold back his laughter. Like the proverb said, "As you got stronger, so did your enemy, and more so than you." Chen Jin's amateur schemes and tricks were no match for Mom's cleverness. In the end, he was finished off in a single blow. He Li could not help but burn with rage. With much effort, she had meticulously selected 3 partners who were the cream of the crop. He did not appreciate it and actually treated her goodwill as ill intentions. If she had believed in physical discipline for her son, she would have beaten him to a pulp. In her terrifying rampage, He Li saw how defeated and listless her son looked. She could not help but soften her heart. "Ah! Son, I only meant well. Look, it's already been 3 years since you graduated from university. Have you done anything meaningful besides staying at home and leeching off of your parents? Life is short, a few decades can pass in the blink of an eye. Can you continue living like this?" He Li said with gravity and earnestness, "I'm pushing for you to get married earlier because I want you to learn the meaning of responsibility and to mature quickly. Why can't you understand my painstaking thoughts? Do you really want to give me a stroke?" She also hated how her son had no ambitions to fulfill his potential or expectations. She had no expectations for her son to be forged into good steel from his current state as a useless lump of iron. It was fine to just be as he was and try his best, or even to simply be obedient to her. The problem was that this fellow just could not be obedient to her wishes. "Don't tell me I have to pull that stunt again? Mom, I know you mean well. But I truly don't want to get married at such an early age. I'm only 24. The average age in the city when people get married is 34. It's too early to get married now. I want to wait a few more years." Chen Jin was about to say that he knew she meant well, but he had his own ideas. He was no longer a child. She could not be arranging everything for him. "What will you do if you don't get married? Will you go to work? Besides getting married early and giving me grandchildren, what else can you do?" He Li knew that her words would hurt Chen Jin's dignity. However, there were some truths that he would not recognize in himself unless it was clearly spoken. "Mom, I do have something to do now. Moreover, I want to achieve big goals and earn lots of money." Suddenly, Chen Jin shook his fist with an expression of utmost seriousness. His gaze filled with certainty and he said, "From today onwards, I've decided that I won't leech off of my parents anymore. I will live by my own efforts." "Oh," He Li looked at him in amazement. Then, she smiled. "My silly son, are you saying this just to show that you are getting angry with me?" Chen Gang could not help but laugh. Shaking his head he thought, "You think you can fight on your own? Mom, I'm not saying this just to show that I'm angry with you. I'm serious. From today onwards, I want to live on my own efforts and not be a leech anymore." With a stern expression, he even added, "From today onwards, I'm a dog if I ever ask a single cent from you ever again." With this, He Li was finally stunned. Scanning his face many times, she saw that the seriousness on his face was unwavering. Finally, she felt his determination. "Live by your own efforts? How are going to do that? Can you let Mom in on your plans for your financial affairs?" Chen Jin said longingly, "I plan to start a business by making my own company. Then I will strengthen and expand it. I will make lots and lots of money." He Li did not immediately smack down his ideas, but queried about his general plans. "Which kind of occupation are you generally planning to do? And which sector are you expanding into?" "I've not decided yet, but it should be in the fields of robots and artificial intelligence and the like. At this time, Chen Gang could not help but interject, do you know how high the barrier of entry is for the robotic and artificial intelligence industries? You could invest tens of millions and not get anything in return. Moreover, do you possess any relevant technical skills? Do you have any talents working for you? Where did your guts come from to want to enter such industries? Chen Jin replied weakly, No, I only have an empty factory. I don't have anything else. But I want to try. He could hear the scorn and ridicule in his dad's words. Chen Gang continued, don't try. You don't even have 1 in a millionth chance of succeeding. How about this? My company is getting ready to recruit, I can rub elbows with some people and get you into my company. You can learn from my side as my apprentice. I will train you personally. You're still young, it's not too late to start learning. After 10 years, you might even be a top-grade engineer with the same rank as me. Chen Gang rambled on as he liked the idea more and more with each word he spoke. He still had a sliver of hope that he could fight for his son to follow in the footsteps of his glorious career. It was not too late and he wanted to try one last time. He never expected Chen Jin to vigorously roll his eyes. After this national day, you'll go the company with me. I will definitely find a way to get you recruited. Chen Gang, can you shut your mouth? My son is not as pathetic as you described. What right do you have to say that his business will definitely fail? What if he really succeeds? He Li was getting impatient listening to his rambling and so she gave him a verbal smackdown. Stiffening his neck, Chen Gang said to her, I shall say it directly. His chances of success are lower than striking the lottery. I don't believe that he can succeed. He's still my son even if he fails. I can support him if that happens. He Li, who had just been scolding Chen Jin harshly, had now gone into protective mode. She reprimanded her husband so vindicatively that he shrank back and kept silent. Getting tired from scolding Chen Gang, He Li turned to face Chen Jin. With an amiable tone, she said, Son, I will definitely support you if you want to be an entrepreneur and have your own career. No matter what you do, I will always support you. However, I can't provide you any other support besides $5 million as your startup fund so you can try making it work. $5,000,000,000. Both Chen Jin and Chen Gang shouted at once. His mother would actually take out such a huge sum to support him. At that moment, Chen Jin's eyes started getting hot and teary. He could really feel the love his mom had for him. But, He Li said in a very different tone, however, this is all I can give out. If your business fails and you lose all $5 million, I will not be able to give you any more monetary support. I can only give you this one chance. If it fails, then you'll have to check your desires and be obedient to my bidding in every aspect. You'll have to live your days honestly and in a stable manner. Son, I'll make this deal with you, okay? At this point, Chen Gang also understood that his wife was trying to use a fee of $5 million in exchange for taming him. In the future, no matter how her son goes about his life, he would have to listen to her bidding. Chen Gang mumbled to himself, so you know this too, our son is not made for entrepreneurship. The chances of his success is very low. But a whole $5 million. Was this not too dear a price to pay? He would never agree to such a method of education. How is this helping their son? It would obviously be detrimental to him. Mom, it's good to show your support. But I don't want a single cent of that $5 million. I have enough money on me to start my business. You don't have to worry about funding. Putting up 3 of his fingers, Chen Jin said, 3 years. Give me a maximum of 3 years. I will definitely make my own company, and it'll earn at least $1 billion in annual profits, no, 10 billion. With Mom's support, it's impossible for me to fail. It's a guaranteed success. But Chen Jin also made his request. Mom, if my business becomes successful and profitable, I'll make my own decisions with regards to finding a partner. Both of you can't interfere. Can we make this deal? He Li's eyes grew wide. She looked at him for a long time, and she found his expression rather interesting and complicated. Was it funny or was it absurd? In any case, He Li could not believe that in a situation with little funds, her son could start his own successful business and realize an annual profit of 10 billion. And within 3 years to boot. Chen Gang sputtered, 3 years and 10 billion too? If you can earn $10 million, I'll write my name back to front. He Li moved her lips silently. She agreed with her husband's thoughts. But, upon further consideration, she only said, "Okay, son. We'll do as you say. I'll give you some time. If your business is successful, I'll wash my hands off your marriage. But if it fails, you'll have to do as I say, and quickly get married and give me grandchildren. Okay, we'll agree to this. No going back on your words. That's a deal." Looking at her son, who was filled with misplaced confidence, He Li felt very suspicious. "Where did your confidence come from? I hope that the agony from your failure can make you mature quickly, and make you more obedient to my bidding too." Chapter 31, Fort Worth City. After the agreement with his mother was settled, Chen Jin was greatly relieved. She'd finally agreed to leave him alone for a while. He could now sit back and relax without his mother harassing him with the whole marriage thing for at least 2 to 3 years. At last, he could enjoy his freedom to the fullest. And he'd take even more pleasure from it after he successfully launched his startup business and earned $15 million, even $150 million. He would be able to do whatever he wanted to. How sweet that would be! But if it failed, well, sorry, but there was no failure in Chen Jin's book. He would never fail. What he needed to think about the most was how he could do the research more efficiently and pull this plan off as soon as possible. Therefore, 5 a.m. on October 1st, the National Day, Chen Jin called his parents to let them know he'd left early to avoid traffic, after he packed his bag and acted as though he was going on a trip with friends. "Have fun, son. Take care of yourself. I'll see you at home," He Li told her son, still feeling sleepy. She had planned to make him some breakfast despite her awful drowsiness, but since he'd just get some on the way, she went straight back to sleep after the call. "Hee, planet, higher fa, here I come." Soon after he'd left the house, Chen Jin sneaked his way back in, quietly opened the door, and locked it behind him. And then, off he went, very nimbly, through the portal in the bathroom with his bag, landing on the metal platform he assigned Li to make. At the huge crater camp, everything was ready. A modified higher fa buggy was fully charged. Blue Angel, working as a backup vehicle, was also fully charged, and there was a total of 51 robots with charged batteries. In addition, there were 50 electric motorcycles for each robot to ride on so that they would speed up rather than slowing down the mission. There were 200 pieces of large, fully charged, high-efficiency batteries as backup, as well as 122 small ones. There were more than 1,000 bottles of water, more than 50 boxes of hardtack, snacks, energy bars, canned fruits, canned meat, and more than 300 packages of ready-to-eat meals in the cargo space on the higher fa buggy, the Rover No. 1. These food supplies would be enough to feed Chen Jin for more than 3 months. His preparation for other supplies was also very sufficient. As for Fort Worth City, it was only about 200 kilometers away from the camp. It wouldn't take more than a day make a round trip, so he had more than enough time to really explore and raid the city. Moreover, as long as he kept driving north along the road by the camp and if the road didn't disappear halfway through he could easily reach Fort Worth City without getting lost. And that was why he was confident to take the driver's seat on Rover No. 1 and lead the team personally to search, raid, the city. "I wonder what will be waiting for me in a larger city with a greater population like Fort Worth. Maybe I'll find more gold, more jewelry, or even more astonishing high-tech information. In any case, I'm sure there will be more treasures in Fort Worth than in Therese." The thought of it was just too appealing. Chen Jin's face was filled with great excitement. He pressed the start button on Rover No. 1 without any hesitation. "Here we go. Vroom vroom." The engine made loud noises as it spun rapidly. Shifting into first gear, Chen Jin held onto the steering wheel, and stepped firmly on the gas pedal. Vroom. The tires started to move as the enormous Rover No. 1 vibrated. The vehicle was moving forward. Chen Jin experienced the acceleration as he stepped even harder on the gas pedal, bringing the speed up to 20 kph. The robots were coming along, too. They formed a 4x4 square contingent of 16 robots, clearing the way on their electric motorcycles, with the sniper robot in the first row using his millimeter-wave radar to scan the road ahead of them to find the best route as well as avoiding landmines. On the sides, there were 2 rows of 16 robots guarding the entire team, with Li driving the backup vehicle Blue Angel at the very back. To make it easier for all vehicles to move around, Chen Jin had ordered the robots to excavate a 50 x 5m opening on the east side of the huge crater. Through this opening, the entire robot team that Chen Jin was leading was able to file out of the crater at a speed of 40 kph. They entered the vast Gobi Desert, and off they went. This not-so-small convoy drove and drifted freely in the barren land of desert. The spinning tires left a trail of rolling dust as they sped along the desert road. All the stirring noises and actions they created suddenly made this silence-filled planet come alive. In the driver's seat in rover number 1, Chen Jin was deeply absorbed in steering the vehicle. The black and white scene through the windshield, the vast, boundless land and the sand-covered sky, the architecture and buildings so rare, it all made Chen Jin feel like he was conducting research on the surface of some alien planet. But he knew that it was because this planet, Hierophant, that had countless things in common with Earth, was so well developed that it led to its own destruction. It was the contradictory nature within mankind that caused the destruction that came from their ambition, desire, and greed. The Earth, however, was no better compared to Hierophant. There were tens of thousands of nuclear weapons, along with all sorts of conflict, and hegemony still existed. Even though the Earth was not at war, and the people in most areas lived a precious and peaceful life, there would always be a possibility for Earth to end up like Hierophant as long as the potential source of conflict was still there. The humans on Earth could destroy themselves. Perhaps I should do something to protect the peace on Earth to prevent it from being exterminated like Hierophant. Chen Jin mumbled to himself, but then shook his head. Maintaining world peace? I'm just a guy with limited resources and limited ability, who am I to decide the future of the Earth? Even if the apocalypse did happen, I'd be thinking about staying alive and keeping my family safe, I wouldn't be worried about anyone else. I'm not a savior nor Virgin Mary, it's not my responsibility to keep the Earth safe. If the World War actually happened, I'd just hide here on Hierophant till it is all over. I'd have found another planet by then. How sweet would that be? Just like the increase in entropy in the universe, creatures like humans are extremely complicated. Some of them are kind, some of them are evil, some are selfless, yet some are selfish, there are those that are religious, and there are those that believe in science, there are the ones that are peace-loving, yet there are the ones that advocate violence, some of them are wealthy, but some are poor. This, naturally, would create numerous conflicts. The society going from stability and order to chaos and confusion is almost inevitable, no one could change that. Unless all of mankind turned into robots that were controlled and programmed, there would be no solution. Therefore, not just Chen Jin, but no one at all would be able to maintain world peace. They'd been driving for 4 hours along the road that was packed with all kinds of vehicles, and they were just north of the city of Therese. Ahead of them, the weather was getting more windy and sandy. The sand accumulation on the ground got thicker and thicker. Driving on the traffic-free highway, Chen Jin had to rely on the scraper on rover number 1 to scrape off all the sand before him so he knew where he was driving. All was good until the sand accumulation was a meter thick and the scraper could no longer work. There was no visibility of the road ahead whatsoever. Chen Jin had to put his De Zhong Phantom 4 Pro camera drone into operation so it could detect and search the area from thousands of meters above. Luckily, the entire convoy was less than 10 kilometers away from Fort Worth City. The drone immediately sent back a set of semi-blurry pictures of the outline of the city. Seeing that they were driving towards the right direction, Chen Jin was greatly relieved, and led the team towards the outline of the city. However, after they got to the outside of Fort Worth City, they parked on a little hill where they could overlook the entire area. Chen Jin was tremendously shocked. There was a massive crater with a radius of 5 kilometers right in the center of Fort Worth City. About 70% of it had been destroyed by a nuclear bomb. Chapter 32, 1 ton of gold. Seeing this, Chen Jin's heart sank. What the heck? I thought I'd found a land of gold, but no, it's not a land of gold, it's a land of junk. There's no point in searching this city. Furthermore, according to the radiation detector, the level of radiation in this area was higher than normal. It was 3 times higher. The place was dangerous, he'd better leave as soon as possible. What should I do? What was Chen Jin supposed to do with this white elephant city where 70% of it had been destroyed by a nuclear bomb? Should he carry on with the research? Absolutely. I made this decision and I will finish it, no matter how hard it might be. Besides, he'd been preparing for this trip for over a month, he took the time and effort to make it to Fort Worth City. He'd come this far, how could he just give up and return without gaining anything? Chen Jin was determined to make the trip worthwhile, whatever he may find. Fortunately the city isn't 100% ruined, there are still some remains in the surrounding areas I can search for. Guess I'll have to take whatever I can find. Hopefully, I'll find as much as I did in Terry's city. And so, the robots were assigned to a new mission. Apart from the 5 robots Chen Jin asked to stay near him for protection, the remaining 46 were divided into 10 groups searching the city from every corner on their motorcycles. Chen Jin had also made a list of priorities, categorizing the items that were worth searching for into 4 different groups. The first group was gold, platinum, diamonds, silver, rubies, and all sorts of jewelry, and they belonged to the valuable group. They were of the utmost importance and should be the first thing to search for. The second group was high technology information, landing second on the priority list. The third group was weapons, special equipment, high-efficiency batteries, and whatnot. The fourth group was factories, mines, and power stations. These crucial but fixed facilities were the last ones on the list. In short, what Chen Jin needed the most right now was the first group, treasure, as he could turn them into cash as soon as he took them back to Earth. Once he had gained sufficient funds for the research and more than enough money for him to spend, the first valuable group would be moved down as he moved up the second group, focusing on collecting all the technology data on higher FA. But for now, he needed to find all the valuables more than anything. Shortly after they began their efforts, units of robots that were distributed to different parts of Fort Worth City brought back good news one after another. Master, we found 800 grams of gold and more than 300 pieces of diamonds and rubies in a residential area. Master, we found 2,400 grams of gold, 700 grams of platinum, and 400 diamond rings in a jewelry store. Master, we found 20 necklaces and 18 bricks of gold, which weigh a pound each, in a safe from a luxury villa. Master, we found more than 1,000 watches of various sorts at a high-end watch store. Should we take them all back? The result was nothing Chen Jin had expected. All units reported great news of what they'd found via radio communication. They had gained quite an amount. It seemed as if gold, diamonds, and watches could be found anywhere. Especially the wealthy villa area on the west side of the city. The robots had already collected more than 50 pounds of gold after searching just 6 villas, and there were more than 100 of them. Fort Worth City was unexpectedly wealthy. Could it be, Chen Jin had guessed the reason why the city was so rich? When the destructive war broke out with a nuclear bomb coming this way, the most important thing for the people of Fort Worth City was survival, not their valuables. Compared to their precious lives, all the prized possessions meant nothing but dirt. So, the people of Fort Worth City left in a hurry, jamming probably just some clothes, water, and food in their cars, and drove all the way to the south to escape war. No one cared about the valuables in the safes. Even the local gangsters and burglars didn't bother to take the opportunity to ransack all these expensive stores. The situation here is completely different from what happened in Terry's. In a few words, Chen Jin had hit the jackpot. Furthermore, it was only the second day of their research, but all the treasures they'd collected had formed a pile as high as half of Chen Jin's height. In addition, Unit 5 brought back even more exciting news for him. Master, we found a vault beneath the remains of a bank in the area where the bomb hit. There was lots of gold in it. What? This eye-popping news had caught Chen Jin's full attention. The vault of a bank. Lots of gold. I must take a look. But the level of radiation residue in the area where the nuclear bomb hit was 10 times higher than normal. It could even go up to 100 times higher in areas with radioactive contamination. Dali suggested Chen Jin stay, because going there would involve a significant risk. As for the gold, robots could bring them over. It'll be fine. I'm wearing my hazmat suit, I've got my radiation detector. And I'll leave as soon as the level of radiation gets unusual. Chen Jin just could not sit still with his rising curiosity, he had to see it for himself. All right, Master. But please do keep an eye on the radiation detector. Dali had no choice but to agree with him. Wasting no time, he hopped onto the driver's seat on rover number 1, leading Unit 5 to the location where they'd found the bank. 20 minutes later, they were at the bank. All of the gold bricks in the vault were 24K and weighed 10 pounds each. After cutting the vault open with a laser, the robots took them out one by one, loading up the storage space on rover number 1 with all of these fine gold bricks. 124, 125. There was even a professional gold counting robot. Finally, the last brick of gold was sitting properly in the storage space. Master, there are 236 bricks of gold in total, the robot reported. He nodded, counting in his head. Each brick weighs 10 pounds, which is 4.5 kilograms. 4.5 multiplied by 236 is 1,062 kilograms. Damn, I found a ton of gold in such a short time. Along with the ones I found in jewelry stores, houses, and luxury villas, I've found a total of more than 1.1 tons of gold. It might even be 1.5 tons. For the price on Earth, if I bring them back, I could sell them for $40 per gram, then it multiplies 1 ton, that's $40 million. I have finally reached the $15 million goal our millionaire Wang always talks about. Chen Jin was filled with tremendous excitement. At first he was hoping, with great anticipation, that he'd reach his goal selling all the valuables he found in the city of Therese, but he'd only made $2.6 million, which obviously didn't meet his expectation. Fort Worth City was under attack and got hit by a nuclear bomb with its city center burned to ashes, leaving only the surrounding areas for Chen Jin to search. What was originally a letdown turned out to be a huge surprise. Haha! I didn't come this far for nothing. No way! Looking at this wall of gold bricks in the storage space, Chen Jin was smiling from ear to ear. What Unit 3 reported to him next brought him an even greater satisfaction. It made him much more overwhelmed with excitement than a 100 tons of gold would. Chapter 33, I found a car factory. Robot Unit 3 discovered a large factory that wasn't too badly damaged in an industrial district in the north of Fort Worth City. A large automobile factory. I found a car factory. Li gave Chen Jin a short introduction about this area. Automotive industry was the economic backbone in Fort Worth. More than half of the residents here worked in related fields. They called it the City of Cars. Their well-developed automotive industry made Fort Worth City the influential capital of heavy industry, which was also the reason why this city was a nuclear bombing target. Entering the massive factory, Chen Jin noticed that on the production line made with numerous mechanical arms, cars were waiting to be assembled. They were all domestic electric vehicles, and there were hundreds of them, all waiting to be rolled off the line. Sadly, however, due to the war they had, it would never happen. In addition to that, a multitude of facilities outside of the factory, such as the coal-fired plants, component suppliers, and warehouses for various auto parts, were all destroyed when the bomb hit. The chances for him to restore the entire factory and put the production line into operation again were basically zero. But did that mean Chen Jin didn't gain anything? No. Led by the robot Li, Chen Jin came to the Center of Intelligence Management, and accessed the rigorously guarded central control room after the medical robot, Dabeo, cut the bulky, metal gate open with his laser gun. Kuong kuong. They forced open a cabinet that seemed like a chest of drawers on the control desk, and pulled a fist-sized cube off the bottom center of the cabinet. The entire cube was black, with the bottom covered with golden pins. It was an industrial solid-state drive assembled with 2014 layers, and it had a built-in neural network, with a memory capacity of up to 10 PB, 10,240 TB. Moreover, it was also the most crucial core of industrial intelligence in this car factory. All the data that kept this production line working, the confidential manufacturing procedures, the programming information, and the solution plans, were stored in this core of industrial intelligence. As for the value of this core of industrial intelligence, well, not even 10,000 tons of gold would be enough to pay for it. With this core, he could build a car factory and manufacture hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles, even if he was just an amateur who knew absolutely nothing about neither those vehicles nor the automotive industry. Chen Jin wouldn't need to learn anything or hire any mechanics, or do any experiments and research, for this whole operation. All he had to do was rebuild the production line, assign the robots to their designated working position, and install the necessary auto parts. Once all of that was done, the electric vehicles would be automatically manufactured one after another. Li explained, their industrial production approach tremendously changed. One of the biggest changes of it all was that they were no longer dependent on humans. Traditionally, for the automotive industry, human engineers were in charge of jobs like adjusting various parameters of the production line, optimizing assembling processes, and discarding unnecessary procedures. A factory would need to hire a lot of engineers. Some of the important fabrication procedures also depended on humans. As a result, the cost of employment increased with the rising demands for their professional skills and proficiency. Chen Jin nodded, and Li continued, but the situation changed with the rise of this core of industrial intelligence. Industrial manufacturing no longer depended on humans. The core of industrial intelligence can collect data by itself, analyze, make adjustments and optimize accordingly, and store all the manufacturing information. With intellectual learning and the agile mechanical arms, humans were gradually replaced, making it an unmanned factory that reduced a lot of labor costs. Furthermore, it also reduced the cost of startup businesses, making it much easier for those who wanted to join the high-tech industry. Especially with the mature 3D printing technology, combined with the core of industrial intelligence, private capsule factories started to emerge and individuals were able to produce complex parts with great quality. For instance, a significant amount of the auto parts in this factory came from a privately owned capsule factory. Capsule factories integrated with the core of industrial intelligence was the primary result brought by the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which was also how the industrial system would work in the future. And now, Chen Jin had found a core of industrial intelligence for automotive manufacturing. Additionally, other robot units brought him even more great news. In the north of the industrial area, there were 115 capsule factories, and a batch of raw material for 3D printers. All of a sudden, he was filled with great confidence. He was confident that he could transform Hierophant and take full control of it. And I thought I was just here to explore, pick rubbish, and maybe strike it rich, not take control of a planet. I guess I was wrong. With the rise of the core of industrial intelligence, industrial development doesn't depend on humans anymore. The combination of industrial robots and intellectual learning has completely replaced humans. The saying that growing an industry requires a lot of industrial population is no longer the case. The industrial development continues to move forward even without the industrial population. Even I, the only alien human on Hierophant, can establish an industrial system. The age of one-man industrial development has come. As for the capsule factories, they could be categorized into two groups. One was the general capsule factory, aka the multi-purpose factory. It could print out any products within its printing range with the information the users gave them. This kind of capsule factory was able to produce thousands of various products as long as specific materials weren't requested. The other one was the custom-made capsule factory. Because of the customized design, the factory could only produce a specific kind of parts, much lessening the varieties of products. But it was also for that reason that the factory could create high-quality items with better materials and supplies, meeting demands for high-standard purposes. Of all the capsule factories the robot units found, 70 of them were custom-made factories, and 45 were general factories. Seeing these capsule factories, Chen Jin came up with an idea. What if I took all of these capsule factories back to the huge crater camp and print out all the essential parts a wind turbine needs, and assemble them? I can then solve the energy shortage problem at the crater. The coal-fired plants in Fort Worth City had already been destroyed by the nuclear bomb. Even if they hadn't, there was no way Chen Jin could collect enough coal to restore the plants. He had to set up a power station to solve the problem. Now that he had all of these capsule factories, he could print out all the necessary parts and solve the power shortage problem completely. He was sure of it. Chen Jin once again was filled with excitement. I can't believe I've gotten so many surprises in Fort Worth City. Chapter 34, Returning from a Rewarding Journey. Surprises kept on coming. On the fourth day of the research, they were still in the industrial district north of the city, but in a smaller factory. Instead of another core of industrial intelligence, the robot units found 2 personal flying cars in a closed warehouse in the factory. 2 flying cars. What on earth was a flying car? Apparently, it was a car that could fly. But it had 4 wheels too, and looked just like regular car. What was different about it was that the design was aerodynamically optimized, meaning the body of the car was sleeker, and the driver's seat was placed in a teardrop-shaped cabin. In addition, the car had a flat chassis as well as 2 triangle strakes extended from both sides of the car, along with a T-shaped vertical stabilizer that had movable flaps which could provide stability whilst flying. As for the power system, naturally it used its engine to generate power when it drove on the ground. However, once the flying mode was on, all the little electric jet turbines at the bottom of the car would start working to lift the car up in the air, and the 2 electric turbines with 100 horsepower at the back helped move the car forward. A vehicle like this required 20 pieces of high-efficiency batteries because it depended entirely on electrical energy. The car could only move up to 800 kilometers in the air, while it could go as far as 2,000 kilometers driving on the ground. They called it an amphibian vehicle in this world. It could be extremely useful when there was heavy traffic. The fact that the robot units found these flying cars in a small factory like this indicated that the auto manufacturer city of Fort Worth was pursuing a diversified development, avoiding putting all of their eggs in one basket. Apart from the aged rubber tires, both flying cars remained well intact as they were stored in the closed warehouse. Once Chen Jin installed 20 high-efficiency batteries into each car, he'd be able to drive on the ground and fly in the sky. He laughed with happiness. Haha! These two sweet gems. They can't fly long distance but they can fly, at a speed of 700-800 km/h. With their help, my research on higher Fa is going to be even more efficient. It would only take me 20 minutes to get back to the huge crater camp. I'd be able to escape fast if there's any danger. Having a car like this was like having a bodyguard. Regardless of how much he'd love to drive the car, Chen Jin preferred to wait a little longer, for he had never driven one before, and the sky was very much covered in dust, making it easy to get lost with the low visibility. As much as he wanted to drive, he did not want to risk his precious life. Plus, they had been sitting in the warehouse for so long now, there might be some problems here and there with the engines and whatnot. He needed to do a thorough checkup before flying it into the sky. On a side note, Chen Jin named the two cars, 2. For the blue one, let's call it Air Number 1, and Air Number 2 for the white one. If I find more later on, I'll just call them, Air Number 3, Air Number 4, Air Number 5, and so on. All robot units had covered and searched every corner of the city. The gems that they had found were pretty much all they could find. Chen Jin had pretty much used up all his good luck, too. On the fourth evening of their research, Tou, the robot that was in charge of the weather forecast, reported back urgent news. Master, I've detected that the weather in the north is getting very dusty, and wind has gotten much stronger too. There is also a massive black cloud coming this way at high speed. Oh, no. It's a sandstorm. Master, I can see it through my optical lens. Please be prepared, Master. The sandstorm will sweep across the city in 5 minutes. What? Chen Jin was frightened. Dali projected the video messages transmitted from Tou. It was as if a massive, pitch-black tsunami coming from the yellow sky was about to devour the entire city at a speed so fast that it seemed like the storm was coming with a magnificent army of thousands of horses and soldiers. Chen Jin was horrified. Hide! All the robots that are still searching the city, hurry! Hide yourself! Find a safe spot and hide! A sandstorm is coming, stop all the research work! Keep yourselves safe! Chen Jin gave out the orders in panic. The weather near the huge crater camp could also get dusty and sandy from time to time, but never a serious storm like this. He had absolutely no past experience to rely on and had not prepared himself for this kind of extreme weather. Fortunately, the closed warehouse where the 2 flying cars were stored in was very strong and sturdy. Chen Jin shut the electric door after parking Rover number 1 and the backup vehicle Blue Angel in there, thinking it should be strong enough to survive the high storm winds. What he was really worried about, though, were the robots that were distributed in all parts of the city. There was no time to gather everyone, he could only release the weather warning so they could find a safe hideout in time. Whoosh whoosh! In no time, all of Fort Worth City was shrouded in a haze as the sandstorm slammed across them. Even the sturdy metal door rattled furiously as the sand and dust hit. From the video messages the robots sent him from outside, Chen Jin saw what was no different from an apocalypse. The city was atramentus. It was simply dark outside. The only sign of life was the sounds the high winds made, coming from every corner of the city. Winds as strong as a 10 on the Beaufort scale could easily uproot anything that had a weaker base. Chen Jin felt nothing but despair in a situation like this. Hiding in the warehouse, Chen Jin asked Dabeo to drill a hole on the wall to let some air in so he could breathe. He didn't dare to take one step outside. Now, all he could do was wait, for 2 days and 2 nights. And yet, the storm didn't seem to have weakened one bit. Chen Jin began to get anxious. The national holidays are almost over, Mom is going to be worried sick if she doesn't see me at home. She'll probably call the police and start posting missing person notices everywhere. She might even break into my room. Chen Jin prayed and prayed for it to be over. That's enough, sandstorm. Please stop. I need to go home. And perhaps his prayers were heard and answered. The sandstorm had finally stopped early morning on the 3rd day. The rays of the sun passed through the dark clouds, shining on countless grains of sand and dust floating in the air. The long-absent yellow sunlight had once again lit up the entire city. However, all the dust and sand brought by the storm had blocked the roads to the south. Luckily, it didn't really affect Chen Jin's route back to the huge crater camp, as he had a compass with him, and most of the robots had a built-in memory function that stored all the route information. Plus, it was only 200 kilometers, getting lost didn't seem very likely. That being said, Chen Jin's expedition team was still somewhat damaged from the sandstorm. He lost contact with 3 robots, and 15 of the electric motorcycles were gone as well as some of the jewelry. But overall, Chen Jin didn't lose too many things. The most rewarding ones were safely stored in the storage room on rover number 1. He assigned 2 robots to fly the cars back to camp, and drove the rover filled with rewards himself. As he sat in the driver's seat, he turned around and took a look at the city that seemed like it was about to be devoured by the desert. I don't think I'd want to visit this place ever again. What if another sandstorm like this hits? Chen Jin mumbled to himself. The robots can come back here to take the remaining capsule factories and printing supplies. I'll just give commands remotely. Besides, it seems that the further north we go, the worse the condition of the natural environments gets, and the more sandstorms there are, including Fort Worth City. It wouldn't make sense to expand up north as all the highways, railroads, cities, and man-made architecture is all covered with sand. It looks fine in the south, though. There are even some drought-tolerant plants. I shall expand my territory down south next. According to the map, the ocean is 500 kilometers south of the huge crater. Oceans and coastal areas have resources that are productive drivers for any nation's economy. It's also the most civic areas where major cities are. For that reason, Chen Jin already knew where he should go for his next expedition, and had come up with a pretty solid plan. Chapter 35, Planning on starting a jewelry store. About 6 hours later, Chen Jin had led his expedition team back to the huge crater camp. The second they arrived, he grabbed his bag and headed straight to the portal and went back to his bedroom. Wa. In the bedroom, the robot Wa waved and greeted him from the corner. Chen Jin took his Huawei i2.0 from one of his drawers and turned it on, ignoring Wa. And as he expected, 124 missed calls from his mother. The time was 4:16 a.m., October 9, 20 times 8. He was supposed to be home 2 days ago. His mother was sleeping upstairs. To take a load off her mind, Chen Jin did some cover-up and gave his mom a call around 5 a.m. Ring. Her phone was answered immediately. Son, where have you been? Why didn't you call me? Where are you now? Are you all right? He got out of bed as soon as she got the call, anxiously asking him all sorts of questions. Mom, I'm fine. I'm home now. The traffic was awful during the national holidays, so we decided to stay for another day, Chen Jin explained with a wry smile on his face. His mom worried too much. You unsophisticated boy. It's totally fine if you wanted to stay out a few more days. But you could have given me a call. Do you have any idea how worried I was? Mom, I told you, the place we went to was a land of Buddhism where everything was pure and clean. No cell phones or computers were allowed. It's how they help people return to nature and find their true self. All right. Open the door. I want to see you. Squeak. His door opened, and his mom was standing outside in her pajamas. A little more than an hour later, Li smiled from ear to ear and her face lit up with exhilaration as he told her all about his travels over the past few days. Then, he gave her a pair of pearl earrings. And just like that, she was pleased. He'd done it again. After dawn, both of his parents had gone to work. Chen Jin was once again home alone. He went back to his room and took a nap for a couple of hours. He didn't go back to the huge crater after he woke up, however. Instead, he turned on his dust-covered computer, opened a web browser, and searched how to start a jewelry store on Baidu. He read closely and carefully on each web page. Yes, Chen Jin was going to start his own jewelry store. One that solely belonged to him. In this store, he would sell gold, silver, platinum, diamonds, jades, and rubies. They came in various colors. In addition, he would set up a counter exclusively for the luxury, high-end watches. In short, his store would have everything and anything that was related to jewelry. I wonder if this kind of business makes money? Chen Jin found a few answers on Baidu Knows. There are 2 ways that a jewelry store can make money. One is from purchase channels, and the other is from the price of the gold you give your customers. Generally speaking, the purchase channels for a jewelry store are jewelry factories. Their factory price is the same as gold's market price, with an extra 50-70 cents of handling fees. Processing charge is also somewhere between that range. Of course, it depends entirely on the region you're in, but usually it won't be more than 70 cents. The price of gold jewelry the store gives their customers is usually based on the gold's market price, with an additional $3 handling fee, and another $3 for processing fees, which means that the profit you make is always at least $4.50 for each gram of gold you sell. But, of course, your profit will be affected if you sell the gold for a price lower than what you pay the factory. Nonetheless, owners usually can stay out of the red. Purchase channels vary from place to place, some are legitimate, some aren't, depends on your preference. You don't make as much working with the legit ones, but it's less risky. Another one answered, no, you don't make much. It's expensive to start your own jewelry store. In smaller cities, you'd need to invest around $45,000, $75,000, in a bigger one, you'd need at least $150,000. You're not going to make it without a good marketing strategy. Even if you do, it's still very risky, because no jewelry store could survive on selling small quantities. And by the way, it's better to not go into this kind of business without any connections with the mafia. It's a massive investment doing this kind of business. Besides, gold prices fluctuate with prices of the share market. Unless you have extremely sufficient funds, you'd better do something else. After doing a little more research on the internet, Chen Jin had a pretty good idea of what this business was all about. In conclusion, there were some rules in the jewelry industry. 1. It's a big investment. Even in smaller cities he'd need to put $45,000, $75,000 into it. In a big city like Shanghai, an investment of $1.5 million would be the very minimum. 2. It's profitable. This business was definitely profitable. But he needed to know the ropes and have some connections. 3. Purchase channels. There are the legal ones and the illegal ones. Low profit and low risk for the legal ones, and high profit with high risk for the illegal ones. Without a doubt, the risk there means the risk of getting fake gold, silver, platinum, etc. The loss would be tremendous if that actually happened. What concerned Chen Jin the most was the government. Were they strict about it? Would he need to report to the government the source and origin of the jewelry? He had already contacted customer service from various jewelry stores regarding this concern, but the only response he received was "We don't know. Mom is an accountant at the tax bureau. I should probably just ask her." Chen Jin called his mother and asked her about it. Li muttered for a moment, and said, "There's no way the government would be able to control all the economic activities in our society. As long as you don't do anything illegal, no one reports you, the government wouldn't conduct an investigation on someone for no reason. You know what I mean? Say, this so-and-so has $150 million. How did he make that kind of money? Did he break the law? The government can't check into it, as long as no one reports this person to the authorities, or if he didn't do anything illegal, he gets to keep the money. This is a massive country, it's impossible for the government to keep an eye on every corner. The administrative expenses would be enormous. It's like money laundering, the authorities have been suppressing it over the years, but only a few cases get exposed to the public every year. The government then deals with those cases to set an example and warn everyone. Most of the time, the authorities stay out of it if things are kept subtle. Li wouldn't normally share this kind of information in public, but her son was asking, so she disclosed some details. So they govern by doing nothing, you mean? I guess you could say that. But what if I discovered 100 tons of gold? Do I get to keep them? Chen Jin asked. No, you don't. Our country does. Li corrected him. Then, what can I do to keep them? Chen Jin started to get anxious. Handing them over? No freaking way. Don't tell anyone about it. Oh, I see. Chen Jin fully understood what his mother meant. Keep it absolutely confidential. I must not give myself away or make any mistakes. Only then could he bring all the jewelry on hire Fa over to Earth, and sell them in his own jewelry store, and turn them into cash. As long as he kept it to himself, and didn't do anything that would raise suspicions, he wouldn't get into trouble even if the government actually decided to conduct an investigation on his store. Besides, Mom works for the government. She's more or less a supervisor too. Why would they want to check on me? So, in a way, Chen Jin did have some connections. As for the funds he needed for the store, $1.5 million, Chen Jin had it. It was the least of his worries. Starting a jewelry store wasn't too difficult, it was just like starting a restaurant or a grocery store, it was very common. He just needed to provide his tenancy agreement, a business license, the tax registration certificate, as well as the approvals from the fire department and the Ministry of Health. Once all of that was taken care of, Chen Jin would make a grand opening for his jewelry store. It was true the procedures were a little complicated and tedious, but Chen Jin was determined to make it happen. There is an unbelievable amount of gold, silver, and various kinds of rubies on Higher Fa. Starting 1,000 jewelry stores is not impossible if I take all the treasures back to Earth with me. But I will only start one store. And only a small portion of the jewelry will be from Higher Fa. I will sell them along with some other ones. A profit of $30 to $45 million per year would be enough for me. Slow but steady, this jewelry store is going to turn into a cash cow that makes profits and helps me with primitive accumulation of capital. After that, I will use the funds to start my business in the high-tech industry, making more profits and creating a greater success. And just like that, Chen Jin graduated from the elderly devouring generation. Step by step, he realized the value of his life. Chapter 36, Chu Wanting. It's settled. Chen Jin went straight to the city center the next morning. Since he'd decided to start a jewelry store, he needed to rent a place and renovate it tastefully as a fine jewelry store. But what area would be best for my store? An economically active, well-developed area with lots of crowds, of course. Perhaps the ground level of a large shopping mall, or the best spot on a bustling commercial street. Anyway, it has to be a place where the population is densest, so I can make the most profit. Chen Jin knew he needed to target areas like that. However, he didn't plan on renting a store in a shopping mall, as places like that were usually very complex, and there wasn't much privacy, plus, the size of the stores there weren't big, so it wouldn't be easy to do much renovation. He preferred to rent an entire commercial building with at least 10,000 square feet in size that had 3 or 4 floors. He wanted a massive jewelry store that could provide customers with the best products. It wouldn't be too difficult to find a commercial building like that. They were everywhere, but the rent was extremely high, especially the ones in the city center. The average rent for 10 SQ Fort per day would be $5. For a place as big as 10,000 square feet, the annual rent would be $44,000, $60,000. It could even go up to $75,000 for a busier area. Chen Jin was speechless. No wonder everyone on the internet said starting a jewelry store is no easy task. Who can actually make money in this business with the ridiculous rent? Running a store, the owner would need to put in an unbelievable amount of thought and effort regarding the rent, the payment for employees, taxes, cleaning fees, management fees, etc. Everything costs money. Even if it was a gold store, the crazy high rent would still eat you alive. Chen Jin found a 3-story building with a size of 10,000 square feet on number 188, Jinling West Road. It used to be a jewelry store too, but they closed it due to the constantly increasing rent. The business simply was not making enough money to pay for it. Intending to rent the building, Chen Jin gave the owner a call. The owner was a man who had gotten a bit of a middle-aged spread and a beer belly. People called him Mr. Li. Mr. Li, how much do you charge to rent this 3-floor commercial building for a year? You want to rent this place? He asked Chen Jin with a suspicious look. How is he going to get the money to rent my building at such a young age? Yes, but I would like to get to know the rent situation first. Chen Jin nodded. $815K for a year, $1.5 million for 2 years. Minimum lease is 1 year, and you would have to pay me half the rent as a deposit if you are renting for a year. Do you have that kind of money? He looked at Chen Jin in a sarcastic way. It's easily a $150,000 kind of deal. You're just a boy, there's no way you have the money. Can you do a better price? $150,000 is a bit too much for me. Chen Jin frowned a little over this. The owner's round beer belly and his greasy hair made him even nastier. He rejected Chen Jin with a wave of his arm. It's a set price, take it or leave it. I will not give any discount. He stood up from his chair, making his way to the door. How about $2 million for 3 years, but you can't increase the rent before my lease is up. If you agree, we can sign the contract right away. Chen Jin stopped him. The middle-aged man hesitated. He thought about it for a moment and said, I'll do it for $2.2 million, but you will have to pay me $745,000 first. If you're okay with that, we will move on to the papers. Done. It was just $200,000 more than what he'd offered. Chen Jin didn't want to argue with him anymore, so he agreed. However, just as they were signing the contract, Chen Jin added one more agreement to it because he was worried this sneaky old man would do something dirty in the future. If the landlord does not comply, and raises the rent during the lease, he will return the deposit to the tenant along with a $7.5 million compensation. $7.5 million. No way. I can give you back the deposit, that's it. I don't agree with this one. His face turned red with anger, refusing to accept the new agreement. I don't trust you. You either accept it or we cancel the deal. Chen Jin was not giving in on this. You, Mr. Li scowled at him defiantly. There are plenty of available commercial buildings these days anyway. I can easily find another one. Fine, let's get this over with. He was obviously not pleased with the new contract. Not being able to increase rent was frustrating, but $2.2 million for 3 years was a great deal. It was 50% higher than what the previous tenant paid for. It was rare to find someone as generous as Chen Jin who could afford such rent. Besides, the building had been idle for 3 months. Potential tenants immediately lost interest the second they found out about the price. If he declined this deal, he'd really have to decrease the rent. Chen Jin then got the key from his landlord after signing the contract and transferring $745 million. Now, he'd finally gotten the access and the legal right of use for the commercial building on number 188, Jinling West Road. Which also meant he would need to find someone to take care of the renovation of the building and, of course, someone to run and manage the store. Chen Jin himself would not have the time to deal with it all, for sure, so he had to hire professionals to help him. As a result, he paid a headhunter company $7,500 to find him someone suitable for the job. They found a middle-aged woman for him within 3 days. Her name was Chu Wanting. She was 43, married, and had over 20 years of experience in the jewelry industry. Having been a store manager for more than 10 years showed that she had the knowledge required to manage a jewelry store and would definitely qualify as a senior supervisor. What was even better was that it was right here in this commercial building that she worked as a manager at Lu Fu Jewelry Store for 6 years before they closed it. She knew the place like the back of her hand. Having no luck for a new job, she had been unemployed for months since the layoff. She's the one. No one will be more suitable than she is. Just like that, she'd become the best candidate for the job, even though Chen Jin hadn't even got to meet her in person. He had to get her to work for his store one way or another. From the contact information the headhunter company provided, Chen Jin gave Chu Wanting a call and arranged an interview at a local coffee shop. Chen Jin was even more satisfied after meeting her in person. She had apparently prepared herself for the interview, wearing the appropriate amount of makeup and putting her hair in a bun. For her outfit, she had a black blazer for the top and a pencil skirt for the bottom with her long legs and nude pantyhose. Her appearance was just average, yet her nobility, intellectuality and elegance made her a sophisticated woman. A charming, middle-aged lady, Chen Jin concluded. In addition, her experience in the workplace allowed her to present herself in a confident manner. She even had a great sense of humor, making Chen Jin laugh his head off with her hilarious comments. He was very happy with her, in every way possible. But Chu Wanting was in fact even more surprised with her young boss. He can't be much older than my son is, how does he have millions of dollars for an investment like this? The only thing my son is good at is playing video games all day long, God knows if he will ever do anything meaningful after graduation. There was nothing she could do about it, she couldn't hit him or scold him. Sometimes she'd even get angry tears. Compared to the young boss, they were vastly different. Chen Jin asked, so, Auntie Chu, there are 2 options regarding your payment. 1, you get $9,000 a month, along with insurance and bonus, however, the percentage of the commission would be very little and it completely depends on your performance. 2, you get $4,500 a month along with insurance and bonus as well, and 1% commission, but it still depends on the profits our store makes. What would you prefer, Auntie Chu? I'll go with the first one. Chu Wanting told him without any hesitation. No business did well these days due to the increasing rent, including the jewelry industry. The net income wouldn't be more than 10% even if the sales revenue was more than $15 million. Moreover, with all the expenses like rent, taxes, and bills deducted, and the boss's share of profits, what was really given to the employees was very little. It might be hard to believe, but at her previous job, she would get her minimum wage and the commissions from her sales, but her average salary per month was less than $2,200, sometimes even $1,200, and she was the manager of the store. So, of course, she'd go for the option with higher monthly pay without even thinking about it. As a senior employee, however, she had initially wanted to talk him out of going into this business. Not only would he not make much money, but he might lose all the money he'd invested in too. But seeing this young boss with great vision and initiative, she changed her mind and bit her tongue. She was, after all, just an employee. All right, Auntie Chu, let's make it your first day. Here's the key. I'll transfer $150,000 to your account. Please hire a team to renovate this place and get it done within 2 weeks. Money is no problem. $150,000. It left Chu Wanting speechless. She had just started working for him and he was already comfortable letting her handle $150,000? Yet. Is there a problem? No, no. Then we'll stick with my plan. Hopefully, we'll have a grand opening at the end of the month. Got it. I'm on it. She nodded. Chen Jin nodded too. He added her to WeChat to stay in touch, and transferred $150,000 to her bank account, putting her in charge of all of the renovation work. Chapter 37, Confused Dad. Now that he had a place to run his store, he needed to take care of the legal documents next. For instance, he needed the 2 most important licenses, one from the Industry and Commerce Administration Bureau, and one from the Tax Bureau. Chen Jin planned on going to both places the same day and getting the licenses required in the most efficient way possible. But suddenly, he realized there was one tiny problem. His mother worked at the Tax Bureau, which had complete jurisdiction over his jewelry business. Which meant that to get the license he needed, he would have to deal with his own mother. It was a bit awkward indeed. The truth was, he was not planning on telling his parents about his jewelry business, he wanted to do it all on his own. And it was for a good reason, too. His mother was like a helicopter parent, paying extremely close attention to every little thing he did and wanting to have everything under her control. She even got anxiously concerned when he was just gone for a couple of days. The great motherly love. But it also meant that for her, he was still a little kid. A little kid that did not grow up. Nonetheless, as parents, they would always subconsciously want to have a say in whatever their children were doing. And no doubt, they did that with good intentions, making sure their children didn't get hurt. But still, he was not a kid anymore, regardless. He had become a grown man with ambitions and responsibilities. He didn't need anyone to intervene in his business, he was perfectly capable of doing things on his own without help from others. However, he'd already rented the building. There was no escaping the fact that he had to deal with the administration his mother worked at to get his license. Besides, his parents were going to find out about it sooner or later anyway, as his store was rather large and quite a noticeable target. Oh well, I might as well just tell Mom now, so she can prepare herself for the news. She might even be able to use her connections and help me get the licenses. So with that, he'd made up his mind. At dinner time, Chen Jin told his parents about his jewelry business, and casually mentioned that he'd already rented the commercial building. What? Son, did you say you're starting a jewelry store? He Li put down her chopsticks and looked at her son in disbelief. Wasn't it just not too long ago that you said you wanted to go into the high-tech and robot manufacturing industry? How come you're interested in selling jewelry now? Not enough money for that yet. It's unbelievably difficult to go into the high-tech industry, and it requires a massive amount of investment too, so I decided to spend some time in the service industry first, Chen Jin said as he smirked at himself. Even that would still cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you have that kind of money? He Li gave him a suspicious look. Working at the tax bureau for over 10 years had helped her understand how every industry worked. The jewelry industry was one of the most competitive ones, where the standards were hard to meet and required a relatively larger investment. Money is no longer an issue. I have enough to support and run the store. What I do need though, is the related licenses. Mom, I need your help. He Li interrupted immediately. Son, where did you get the money from? Even a small jewelry store in a remote area would cost you something like $70,000, and in the city center it is at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tell me the truth. Where did you get the money from? Part of it is mine, and I borrowed some. Ma, please stop asking. Chen Jin started to get a little annoyed by all the questioning. His mom was always like that, asking countless questions trying to get to the bottom of it all. You must tell me first. How much of a loan did you get? From whom? Don't even think about borrowing money from one of those shady underground banks. You'll never be able to pay them back. If you did, pay them back right away, I'll give you the money you need. Li asked a chain of questions in all seriousness. This was her son's first startup business. She had to look out for him. I told you, Mom. I borrowed it from a friend of mine. It was just $15, 20k. Ma, I want to be independent and stop relying on you and Dad. I'll deal with it if anything goes wrong. Please take no part in any of this. Chen Jin requested earnestly. Having a mother like her really gave him headaches sometimes. Fine, noticing how the conversation was going, Li decided to stop asking. But still, she couldn't help but add one more thing. Son, if money ever becomes an issue, and it's within $750,000, tell me. I will give you the money. Chen Jin rolled his eyes. Getting the lawful licenses in 2 days is the only thing I need your help with, Mom. Sure, no problem. I will help you with that one. It was easy for Li, she'd just give her people a little heads up and they'd do the rest. Besides, she also had some connections in the Industry and Commerce Administration Bureau, her son would no doubt get the licenses within half a day. Awesome. Thank you, Mom. Chen Jin was very pleased. It wasn't so bad to have a mom like her after all. Don't be silly, son. Anything for you. Li smiled as she shook her head. Then, she turned around to look at her husband, Chen Gang, and said, Old Chen, your son is really running his own business now. He's starting a jewelry store. For some reason, however, Chen Gang didn't seem to have paid any attention to what had just happened. Instead, he kept staring at the watch on his left wrist, looking rather dull and absent. He'd been like that for days. He didn't hear a word of the conversation Li and Chen Jin just had. He stared at his watch with his eyes fixed on the second hand. They could hear him speak in a barely audible voice from time to time, no way, that's impossible. Hey, old Chen. I'm talking to you. She elbowed him. His behavior obviously did not make her very happy. Oh. That brought Chen Gang back his normal self. He adjusted the glasses on his nose and said in a sluggish way, What are you guys talking about? Li rolled her eyes at him and told him about their son's jewelry store again. A jewelry store? Chen Gang looked at his son doubtfully. Wait, didn't you say you wanted to build robots or something like artificial intelligence, that sort of thing? And now, a jewelry store? Yeah, but I have to make some money first. Without money, how can I get into the high-tech industry? Chen Gang was startled. He nodded and agreed with his son. Good point. Well done, son. Keep up the good work and make that money. He thought Chen Jin's plan was somewhat reliable, so he showed his support. But then, he remembered something and asked his son. Son, where did you say you got this watch from again? He showed him the watch, looking all confused. Dad, didn't I tell you already? It was a $12 watch from some street vendor. Chen Jin rolled his eyes again. His dad had been asking him the same question over and over. He was done answering. But can you take me to the vendor? Impossible. Street vendors move from one place to another. Where would you even begin to look in a huge city like Shanghai? Chen Jin explained as he spread his hands. All right, Chen Gang shook his head in frustration. His eyes were on the knockoff watch again. His curiosity pushed him to make a secret decision. I guess I'll have to do it on my own and solve this $12 mystery. Chapter 38, Atomic Clock. The next day during lunch break, in a production department of the Commercial Aircraft Corporation, Chen Gang was trying to solve his mystery. Be careful with it, Technician Zheng. It was a gift from my son. Please don't break it. Standing close to the operating station, Chen Gang kept reminding the technician how important the watch was, even though it was just a $12 watch. I get it. Stop worrying, will you? I'm the National Super Technician. I know exactly what I'm doing. But if you think otherwise, by all means, find someone else to do it for you. Technician Zheng put down the screwdriver and looked at Chen Gang from the corner of his eyes, seeming displeased and offended. He was the best and the most senior technician in the Department of Landing Gear Design and Development. Everyone listened and did as he said, even though he came from a poor family and didn't get a good education. Even the chief designer in the department called him Old Zheng whenever he saw him. Technician Zheng thought that the vice president of the company, Chen Gang, was a decent man of knowledge, and had agreed to help him solve the mystery when he came to him for help earlier that day. But who knew he'd turn out to be such a pain? "I'm sorry, Technician Zheng, I'll stay away and let you do your work." Chen Gang quickly apologized. The truth was, it wasn't like he couldn't do it himself. He was good with his hands, but his vision wasn't as good as it used to be, and there were 8 screw fixings around the watch that were thinner than a string of hair invisible to the naked eye. He had no choice but to ask Technician Zheng for help, who had the steadiest hands in the production department. Seeing that Chen Gang had learned to stay quiet, Technician Zheng was pleased. He took the smallest screwdriver and began to unscrew the mechanical watch in front of him very carefully, trying to take a look at the complex structures and designs on the inside. Chen Gang held his breath as he watched. His face was filled with exhilaration. However, his state of mind was not in alignment with what his face showed. He was anxious on the inside. The truth will soon be revealed. He still could not believe that this $12 knockoff watch that he'd been wearing for 2 months still had no time deviation. The time was exactly the same as the standard electric time. And it was a mechanical watch. The kind of watch that used mainspring as a power source and was meant to have time deviation. For example, the world-famous mechanical watch brand, Rolex, had a time deviation of plus or minus 30 seconds in every 24 hours. Longines, the most high-end, luxury watch brand in Switzerland, whose watches were mostly custom-made and designed by exceptional watchmakers, had a time deviation of less than 2 minutes per month. But these internationally respected watch brands were nothing compared to this $12 knockoff mechanical watch Chen Gang had. Because there was still no time deviation even after 2 months. In fact, he had already noticed something strange about this high-accuracy watch in the first 2 weeks, but he didn't pay much attention to it at first. That is, until a month later, when the watch remained perfectly precise, then, he finally took it seriously and realized how unusual the knockoff watch was. The curiosity inside of him got stronger and stronger the following month, making him decide to investigate and get to the bottom of how this watch really worked. As a senior technician for landing gear design and development, high grade, precision, and advanced were the 3 most suitable words one could use to describe Chen Gang. In addition to that, his career had helped him develop his attention to detail ability, which made him very sensitive to accuracy and precision. And he checked the time on his watch every single day. As a result, all of his energy had been drained by this knockoff watch over the past month. Now it was time for him to end the misery and find out exactly what was going on with the knockoff watch. Technician Zheng's micromanipulation skill really was top-notch. 2 hours later, all the screws and nails around the mechanical watch had been unscrewed. The carbon fiber back cover was slowly opened. In front of Chen Gang and Technician Zheng, the bright color of the movements, the cogwheels, and the balance spring on the inside lit up their faces with silver gloss. Technician Zheng was stunned. I would say there are at least 10,000 components in this watch. There were several even smaller parts that could only be seen under an industrial microscope. With the help of the microscope, the parts that couldn't be seen with the naked eye now looked like a massive busy factory where all the cogwheels worked with one another harmoniously. Suddenly, behind a unique, obscure device that was just the size of a thumb, Chen Gang saw with his amazed, overwhelmed eyes, the answer to why the knockoff watch was unbelievably accurate. Atomic clock. There is an atomic clock installed that helps the watch regulate to the correct time deviation. There was a display screen that was just as small as a grain of rice on the surface of the atomic clock. On the screen, there was a long line of numbers, 919-260-1770, which indicated the number of times the cesium atom vibrated per second, approximately calculating the time deviation of the atomic clock, which was less than 1 second in 100,000 years. This is inconceivable. Chen Gang shook his head fiercely. How is it possible for an atomic clock to be this tiny? Even the smallest one in the world is the size of a music box, which is 10 times bigger than this one right here. How could it be so microscopic like this? Technician Zheng, on the other hand, was in great shock. He muttered to himself as his hands trembled. Is this really how far behind we are compared to Western countries? How are we going to catch up? We've already spent 30, 40 years working day and night trying to make a change. Does this mean we still need 30 more years to reach the possibility of developing the advanced technology the Western countries already have? The problem was, Technician Zheng was already 60 years old. How was he going to be around when his country outdid the rest of the world? Am I just going to continue to despair? It turned out that technician Zheng thought the English letters on the watch meant it was a masterpiece from the Western world. Which also meant that the enormous gap between his country and the Western countries would not be bridged any time soon. He was devastatingly overwhelmed by his innate inferiority. Good thing was, it was business hours, which meant that everyone else was working. They were the only two that were slacking off, and also the only ones that were bewildered. For Chen Gang, though, it was more confusing and surprising. He was surprised that this was only a $12 watch from some street vendor. There has got to be more than just this one. Watches are industrialized products. I've already got one, I might find a second one, a third one, then I would be able to understand the technology behind this advanced watch. Realizing how exceedingly valuable this could be, Chen Gang picked up his phone and made a call. I must ask my son and find out where that street vendor is. At the Industry and Commerce Administration Bureau, with just a phone call from Chen Jin's mother, the people in the office processed his papers efficiently. The procedure would normally take 3 business days, but Chen Jin surely was going to get his licenses within 1 day. The one in charge was a female director who was also a friend his mother's. Dong Lei, in her 40s, was a charming middle-aged lady. This female director was very talkative and passionate. She asked quite a few questions whilst handling Chen Jin's papers. Little Chen, what makes you want to start a jewelry store? Are you starting the jewelry store all by yourself? It's a large store and it's your first startup business, are you sure you can do it? Is your family going to help you? Chen Jin answered all her questions one by one. He said he started the jewelry store by himself, yes, and he took care of all the funds needs without asking for a penny from his parents. He also had hired someone to manage the store. It was true that he didn't know much about the industry, but he was willing to learn from the people that did to achieve his goals. Dong Lei nodded. With the kid's attitude and confidence, she knew she was right. There was no way He Li's son was a mommy's boy. Rather, he was definitely a young man with ideas, plans, and ambition. Sure, he didn't do well academically, but he was courteous and organized. He made a much better impression compared to all the other young men from wealthy families who had excellent transcripts and charismatic looks. Moreover, he didn't boast about himself or indulge in loud and empty talk, and he faced his problems up front. All in all, he seemed like a very down-to-earth, practical young man. Dong Lei really liked him. But she was confused at the same time. Is he really a mommy's boy? There must have been some misunderstanding between Lin Lin and him. A wise woman like director he wouldn't raise a son like that, would she? There was definitely a misunderstanding. Dong Lei had been there, done that. She knew first impressions weren't always reliable when it came to dating. It was not a good idea to paint it all with the same brush. Now that she'd done the inspection personally, she decided Chen Jin was unquestionably good enough for her daughter. After his licenses were approved, Dong Lei handed them over to Chen Jin, took out her phone, and said, "Here, little Chen, add me on WeChat. Send me a text whenever you need help. Stay in touch." Chen Jin was exhilarated. "Thank you so much, Auntie Dong. I appreciate it. Let me take you to dinner after my store's grand opening." "You're very welcome. Keep up the good work. I wish you all the best." Dong Lei smiled. "See you later then, Auntie Dong. I'll leave you to it." Chen Jin then earnestly put the licenses in his briefcase, walking out of the office with a broad smile on his face. Ring ring ug. All of a sudden, his phone rang. It was his dad. "Son, can you come over to my office? I have something extremely important I need to ask you about." Chapter 39, Nowhere to be Found. "Sure, I'll be right there." After hanging up the phone, Chen Jin drove straight to the Commercial Aircraft Corporation, CAC, where his dad worked. Half an hour later, Chen Jin saw his dad waiting outside the gate anxiously. To keep random riff-raff away, the company had a strict policy and did not allow anyone that was not an employee of the cooperation inside. "Hey, Dad! What's going on?" Chen Jin asked as he got out of the car and his dad hurried to where he had parked. "Come here." Chen Gang put his arm on Chen Jin's shoulder and took him to a flower bed behind a rockery. He said to him in a low voice, "We'll talk here." Chen Jin was puzzled. He couldn't figure out what his dad was up to. "Son, let me ask you one more time. The watch that you gave me, where did you get it from?" Chen Gang asked, looking him in the eye. "Dad, didn't I tell you already? I bought it from some street vendor in Shanghai City." How many times do I need to repeat myself? Chen Jin simply just did not want to answer his question ever again. Where was the vendor that you bought the watch from? Refusing to give up, Chen Gang continued to try and get some valuable information out of his son. I think it was near Zonghai Garden Road, or somewhere in that neighborhood. Chen Jin tried very hard to recall. Son, can you help me find the street vendor? Find the man that sold you the watch. We must find him. Oh boy! Chen Jin stamped his feet and said to his dad, haven't I told you already? They move around all the time, those street vendors. They don't do business in the same place, it is impossible to find him. But we should at least try. Son, this man is crucial. He is of great importance. It's just a street vendor. How important could he be? Chen Jin just could not understand what his dad was thinking. It was as if he had OCD and refused to let it go unless he found the street vendor. Chen Gang then explained to his son why he desperately needed to find that man. Son, did you know the watch that you gave me 2 months ago was, in fact, not some cheap, knock-off watch, but rather, a very high-tech one that has extremely high timing accuracy? There is a microscopic cesium atomic clock inside the watch, which means it regulates the time, and the deviation will remain less than 1 second even after 100,000 years. The kind of industrial technology and skills used to design this watch is beyond our understanding. Our country would never be able to produce something like that even if we continue to advance and develop new ideas and technology for 30 more years. This watch has unimaginable value. Chen Gang waved his arms and spluttered as he explained, getting more and more excited. This watch is critical to the industrial development in our country. Right now, we are still uncertain about the manufacturing process behind it, but if we can get more of this kind of watch, we'd be able to do reverse research and use them as a reference. This will undoubtedly be greatly beneficial to our industrial technology. What? Chen Jin was appalled after listening to his dad. Who would have thought? Even an ordinary watch could create such drama? It could even have a great impact on our country's technological development in the future. An unimaginable value? All of this gave Chen Jin an idea. He wiped off the spit his dad accidentally spluttered in his face and asked with an inquisitive look. So, Dad, is that watch worth a lot of money? Money? This particular train of thought caught Chen Gang off guard, but he responded and nodded shortly. Oh yes, it is worth a fortune. How much? Like $15,000, or even $150K. Only $150,000? What if you raise the price? Could you sell it for $1.50 million? Probably. If I was the one in charge, I'd buy the watches for whatever price they give me. Wait, what the heck? Kid, I'm being very serious with you here. Chen Gang shook his head fiercely. Price? What price? Money would never be comparable with this watch. He grabbed Chen Jin by his arm and said in a very serious voice, Son, please. Find that man for Dad. Find him. If you can find him, you'll do your country a solid, and everyone will be forever grateful for you. Chen Gang finished with a hint of imploration in his voice and his face covered in sincerity, hoping Chen Jin would agree and help him find the street vendor. Seeing his father like that, Chen Jin couldn't help but nod. He knew his father, like the senior comrades from the revolutionary times. His father was also a true patriot and was always ready to vigorously support his country. It really was rare to find someone like him in a time like this. Besides, even though he was the vice president, which was not exactly a low-level position, for crucial aircraft equipment at CAC, his monthly income was merely a little more than $2,000 with some national allowance, which was only a tiny bit higher than the average income in Shanghai City. Compared to those celebrities who hardly knew anything about acting but still made $15 million for each crappy movie they produced, what his dad made was nothing. Of course, there were several privately owned businesses who invited him to work for them and offered $150 million each year as well as a house and a car, but he stayed with CAC and turned them all down, because it was his dream to build massive airplanes for his country. Deep down, he was Chen Jin's hero, even though most of the time he didn't appreciate his father's criticism regarding his behavior. Therefore, he decided to join his father on this one. Okay, Dad. I'll do my best to find this guy. I'll give you a call once I spot him, but please don't blame me if I don't. Shanghai is an enormous city, after all. There are crowds everywhere. It wouldn't surprise me if I didn't find him. Yes, you are right. Just do your best. It's not your fault if you can't find him. Chen Gang had adjusted his mindset. His son was right, after all. With this kind of population in the city, the possibility of finding this man was incredibly slim. Still, he planned on driving around the city over the weekend himself, looking for this street vendor that, according to Chen Jin's description, was oddly skinny and had eyes like that of a mouse. Inevitably, he blamed himself for not having enough power. If he had a higher level position, he might be able to use his connections in the police department and locate the street vendor via their security system, which would be much more efficient than driving around, looking for one man among hundreds of thousands. Dad, I'm going to start looking now. Go back to work. I'll call you if I find him. All right, don't worry about me. Drive safe. Got it. Chen Jin waved his dad goodbye as he drove away in his Mini Cooper. Aimlessly, he drove around Shanghai City, without a single intention to look for this street vendor. There was no such man. Where was he going to find him? So he simply drove around and took some random pictures to prove that he did try. With an ironic smile on his face, he muttered to himself, I've been playing dumb for days, but Dad still got it all figured out after all. I wouldn't have given him a watch like that if I'd known this was going to happen. I'd have given him anything but this. I should have paid more attention to it. I almost gave myself away. Fortunately, I'm an actor with excellent acting skills. I fooled him good, so he didn't notice anything else that didn't add up. After all, he'd been playing games with his mom for years, the two of them manipulating each other. He wouldn't call himself the best actor, but for a little scheme like this, he was able to manage. After driving a few more rounds in the city, Chen Jin finally came home around 9 p.m., fatigued from the trip. He showed his dad the pictures on his phone. Dad, I looked everywhere, but I still didn't find the street vendor. Oh, that's fine. We'll keep looking tomorrow. Chen Gang shook his head. He was unsurprisingly disappointed. But he wasn't ready to give up just yet. Chapter 40, Remedying the Situation with Urgency. Without a doubt, the value of the atomic clock installed in the mechanical watch was tremendous. Not only was it high-grade, precise, and advanced, but it was also a greatly beneficial reference for the country's industrial development. It was also significantly useful. Moreover, it could work as a moon watch for astronauts and provide highly precise timing data. For those who were keen to embrace outdoor activities, they'd be able to enjoy their adventures to the fullest without having to worry about not knowing the time if their phones received no signals or ran out of battery. In addition to all of those benefits, the watch could also provide directions if one got lost. With sunlight, one could divide the time indicated on the watch by 2, then point the calculated number at the sun, and the direction where 12 was would be the north. You could even calculate the exact latitude and longitude of your location with a particular formula if your watch had the precise time. The same theory also applied to the design of the GPS from America and the BDS from this country. In short, the time on the watch could be used to calculate all kinds of information as long as it was precisely correct. How could I still call it nothing but an extravagant accessory that can only make someone look fancy when it's actually such a powerful device? And just as he expected, most of the mechanical watches that he put together with all the other jewelry were also installed with an atomic clock. Thank God, there's only one out here. No. Suddenly, Chen Jin looked horrified. Crap. I think there's more than one. Apart from the one I gave to Dad, I sold several other ones studded with gold and diamonds to quite a few pawn shops and jewelry stores. Among them all, there was one studded with a massive, all-natural blue ruby that I sold to Sotheby's for $445,000. What should I do? Whoever bought the watches might have noticed something odd about them too. What should I do? I must come up with a plan to get them back. He couldn't sit still, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He couldn't imagine what would happen to him if someone found out about the watches and submitted them to the authorities. If the government conducted an investigation and put all the evidence together, it'd lead the police to him. It was too scary to even think about what would happen. I must recover those watches, whatever it takes. Therefore, Chen Jin left early the next morning to go searching in the city, trying to remember which shops he'd gone to. Pawn shops, jewelry stores. He went into all the shops and inquired about the watches even if he only had a vague memory of visiting these places 2 months ago. Sir, I sold you a watch a couple of months ago. Do you still have it? Sir, I sold you a watch 2 months ago, but I would like to redeem it now, please. It's got sentimental value. Very important. Sir, do you remember me? I sold you this a couple of months ago. 3 days in a row, Chen Jin had visited at least 100 stores, whether he'd gone there 2 months ago or not, urgently attempting to fix this mistake. But even so, he'd only retrieved 3 watches, and it cost him more than $74,000, which was 10 times the price he sold them for. It didn't seem likely to recover the remaining 3 or 4 watches, as the owners either said they'd already sold them to someone else, or the watches had been taken care of. As for the one with a massive blue ruby that he sold to Sotheby's, well, they insisted that according to the contract they signed with their clients, once an item was sold, there would be no redemption, and the contact information of the buyer remained confidential. Chen Jin had no choice but to leave empty-handed, feeling anxiously distressed. It made him disturbingly concerned knowing there was one enormous hidden trouble somewhere out there. To put his mind at ease, he decided to rule out the possibility of the watches having both studded diamonds and built-in atomic clocks through the process of elimination. One thing he knew for sure was that the people that bought the watches studded with diamonds and gold might not have made the purchase for the functions, but for showing off. It was perfectly logical to assume that it would be impossible to still install an atomic clock with all the rubies and diamonds studded on the watch, as there wouldn't be enough space for both features. Therefore, Chen Jin took the 3 watches that he'd successfully recovered and returned to the huge crater camp. He asked the robot Dabeo to crack open the watch with the high-heat laser gun. As he expected, due to the very limited space inside the watch, there were just some regular components that a normal mechanical watch would have. There was no atomic clock. It was the same for the second and the third one. No atomic clocks installed. Finally, Chen Jin was greatly relieved. I knew it. How would they still manage to put an atomic clock in the watch when there are already so many diamonds studded on the outside? I must have been too worried. However, nothing was absolute. Chen Jin couldn't be 100% sure that the ones that were still out there didn't have built-in atomic clocks either. As a result, he carried on with his process of elimination and filtered out all the watches adorned with jewels from the large pile of jewelry. All in all, there was 286 of them. Again, he forced them open with Dabeo's laser gun to take a look inside. Eventually, he made his final confirmation. 268 of the watches were of normal design, whereas 18 of them had atomic clocks installed. From this result, Chen Jin calculated that the probability for this kind of watch to have a built-in atomic clock was roughly 6.3%. So this multiplies the 9 watches that I sold, the amount of the ones that have atomic clocks is 0.56%. Which means that other than the one I gave to Dad, there are still a watch floating around somewhere out there. If I round it up, it's just 1 watch, which means only 1 more person would have the atomic clock watch. The chances of me and my secrets being exposed to the public is extremely low. It's not that bad of a situation after all. Plus, the person that bought it is most likely someone wealthy and just wants to look cool, not an engineer like Dad is. They wouldn't pay much attention to the time and see if it's accurate. Even if they did discover something unusual about the watch, it wouldn't be possible for them to trace it back to Chen Jin with the dealer company working in between them. So, it was unlikely for anything to happen to him. Basically, nothing was ever going to happen to him. Having learned the low probability of getting into trouble, Chen Jin decided to take the risk and gave up on the research. To him, it really was a lot of work, and quite exhausting. It was a miracle that he did this for 3 days in a row. He didn't want to invest 100% of his time trying to fix something that in all likelihood was not going to happen. The game would not be worth the effort. After all, he still needed to take care of some other stuff at his own jewelry store. The robots had brought a large number of equipment and supplies back to the huge crater camp, too. He had to start making arrangements for his next step, which was resolving the issue with the power shortage and low voltage on the planet. He would have to just come up with a story if anything were to happen with the watch. At the dinner table, after announcing his decision on giving up on looking for the street vendor, it killed He Li to see her son like this. Son, you've been searching for him for days. You leave early in the morning and don't return till late at night, you're all 6s and 7s now. It's okay, son. Let it go. You tried. Besides, you have a business to run now. You can't be doing this all day long. She brought more food to his plate. Okay. There really wasn't anything Chen Gang could say. He knew his son had been trying hard, looking for the street vendor all over Shanghai City the past few days. It wasn't his fault that he didn't find him. It was simply bad luck. It was totally understandable to give up. Chen Jin nodded in a cunningly calm manner. Dad is too easy to fool, he thought to himself. And that was how the whole street vendor drama ended. As for the watch that he gave his father, it remained a mystery in the history of the country's technology development, sitting in the laboratory for smaller precision machines at CAC.